The Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure will come to order, and I'd ask unanimous consent that the chairman be authorized to declare a recess at any time during today's hearing. Without objection, that is so ordered. As a reminder, if members insert a document into the record, please also email it to documentsti@mail.house.gov. And so due to the expected votes this afternoon and understanding the Secretary's schedule after consulting with Ranking Member Larson, without objection, I would ask unanimous consent to limit member questions to 3 minutes each to allow maximum member participation. And I also will be foregoing my questions. So with that, I recognize myself for an opening statement, and I want to thank you, Secretary Duffy, Sean, for being here today to discuss the Department of Transportation's policies or programs and fiscal year 2026 budget request. You have had an extremely busy 6 months, and I appreciate you coming in to answer members of Congress's questions. Following the tragic aviation accidents in the recent months and years of underinvestment in FAA's capital budget, this committee responded by providing the FAA with a $12.5 billion down payment to modernize air traffic control systems as part of the reconciliation bill. This funding will allow the administration to immediately get to work to replace critical telecommunications infrastructure and radar systems, invest in runway safety and airport surveillance projects, and replace antiquated air traffic control facilities. I appreciate your work on the administration's brand new air traffic control system plan, and I look forward to working with you and the administration to ensure this funding supports the plan's goals and helps deliver a state-of-the-art ATC system. We also recently marked the 1-year anniversary of FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024 being signed into law. This bipartisan law significantly advances the aviation industry through safety reforms, requirements for the FAA to plan for modernizing the ATC system, improvements to address workforce challenges, increased funding for airports across the country, improvements to the passenger experience, and the inclusion of the very first ever general aviation title. I look forward to working with you, Secretary Duffy, so that this law is implemented in a way that ensures America's aviation system remains the gold standard for the world. Additionally, the committee is already working on the next surface transportation bill, which we plan to consider before the end of the year. The current authorization, which is set to expire next September, has plagued infrastructure planning with delays, cost increases, and administrative confusion. The committee has a prime opportunity to focus on core infrastructure that moves people and goods safely and efficiently, cut red tape and accelerate project delivery, ensure that states have the flexibility that they need to address their priorities, and shore up the bankrupt Highway Trust Fund. We must maintain the user pays principle and offer solutions for putting the Highway Trust Fund on a more sustainable fiscal path. I look forward to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to address the trust fund's funding challenges. Simply put, we have to make America build again. And with that, I want to thank you, Mr. Secretary, for again being here with us today, and I look forward to hearing your testimony and a productive hearing. With that, I recognize Rick for his opening statement.
Thank you. Thanks for holding this hearing, Chair Graves. Secretary Duffy, thanks for taking your time out of your busy schedule as the head of 2 federal agencies now. I appreciate your appearance before the committee. This committee is a workhorse committee. We're not a showhorse committee. It has a history, which I appreciate Chair Graves continuing, of enacting legislation to fund critical transportation and infrastructure projects to create jobs, working across administrations to get these investments to our constituents. And I certainly want to continue that partnership. There's a lot of critical work ahead of us to modernize the air traffic control infrastructure and boost controller staffing, to improve rail safety, to upgrade roads, bridges, airports, and ports, and transform how we move people and goods safely through communities and across the country. We have a great opportunity to work together on job-creating infrastructure investments this Congress, including a surface transportation authorization bill. But to do any of that work, we do have to rise above the chaos. Delaying grants authorized in statute or conditioning transportation funding on things that don't have to do with transportation won't get us to yes. DOT is currently reviewing 1,300 approved grants, and your 26 budget request seeks to cancel $5.7 billion in EV charging grants. So I urge you to get on with the review of the remainder of these grants because we are leaving construction jobs on the table without these grants going out the door. Holding up these grants stalls badly needed job-creating infrastructure investments, and we need to get them going on that. Firing federal workers who oversee infrastructure or carry out critical safety missions won't get us to yes. More than 4,100 DOT employees have left the department, and several agencies in the department, including FHWA, FTA, and NHTSA, have seen reductions of more than 25%. So I urge you to consider how you're going to expedite project delivery and advance safety with the decimated workforce. Privatizing air traffic control won't get us to yes. The 24 FAA reauthorization for airports provides a blueprint to make long overdue investment in ATC infrastructure. My priorities are increasing the FAA's ATC and aviation safety workforce to meet growing airspace demand, expediting the deployment of critical runway safety technology, and replacing outdated ATC infrastructure, notably telecommunications, which are the nervous system of the ATC network. In the wake of the tragic Potomac mid-air collision and trend of near misses, we have to get it right. Now that Congress has provided DOT $12.5 billion to launch this mission, we need specifics on DOT's plan to improve our ATC system and ensure the safety of the flying public. And cutting off critical safety investments won't get us to yes. We have a national epidemic of preventable highway deaths. There's a clear federal interest for us investing in the infrastructure to ensure the safety of all modes of travel, including cars, trucks, bikes, shared use paths, and sidewalks. Congress has enacted programs that make these projects specifically eligible for federal funding, and unilateral actions by DOT to halt legally dedicated funding and reaching back to already awarded grants will make the traveling public less safe. The DOT's job is to implement the laws that Congress has negotiated and passed, and it's every member of this committee's job to hold DOT accountable to that standard, regardless of party in power, and regardless of how much we like the Secretary or not. And I do want to say I do like the Secretary, but he hears from me a lot. So far, this administration has played a little fast and loose with the division of responsibility between the legislative and executive branches and has given deference to executive orders, even if Congress has already passed a law with a very different idea. So you received a lot of letters and inquiries from many members on this committee. I certainly collect a longer list of inquiries today, and I urge you to respond to each of these requests in a timely manner. I do want to thank you in advance for keeping us informed of the department's actions so that we can represent our constituents, solve transportation problems, and improve safety. I look forward to your remarks in today's discussion. Before I move on, I do want to yield the remainder of my time to Representative Chuy Garcia for a brief statement.
Thank you, Ranking Member Larson, for yielding so that I can express my support for the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. This committee regularly considers and reauthorizes the DBE program, most recently in the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024. This program combats intentional discrimination and ensures that women-owned and minority-owned businesses have a fair chance to compete for the transportation and infrastructure contracts. The committee has also collected statistical and qualitative evidence of discrimination faced by women and minorities in their attempts to establish, grow, and operate construction businesses and bid for highway, transit, and airport projects across the country. I've personally heard from firms across Chicagoland, including Ms. Deesh, who said, the DBE program creates opportunities for my company to pursue a piece of the project that would typically be too large for my company to pursue as a whole. Ms. Weiss said, the DBE program has brought me into the projects and partnership that literally keep my lights on. And Mr. Castro said, the DBE program has given our firm an incredible opportunity to work the engineering space on high-profile projects in our community. End of quotes. As we prepare for the surface bill, the committee has received over 100 submissions supporting the continuation of this program and ensuring businesses in our districts are not shut out of the construction contracting opportunities. I ask unanimous consent to insert these letters into the hearing record.
Without objection.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Yield back.
So now, again, I want to welcome our witness, Secretary Duffy. And again, thank you for being here. I don't have to explain the lights to you, and let's all be mindful of the time constraints that we have. I might ask unanimous consent that the witness, the full statement be included in the record, and without objection, that is so ordered. I'd ask unanimous consent that the record at today's hearing remain open until such time as our witness has provided answers to any questions that may be submitted to them in writing. Without objection, that is so ordered. I'd also ask unanimous consent that the record remain open for 15 days for any additional comments and information submitted by members or witnesses to be included in the record of today's hearing. Without objection, that is so ordered. As your written testimony has been made part of the record, the committee asks that you try to keep your oral remarks to 5 minutes. So with that, Mr. Secretary, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, members of the committee, thank you for having me today to testify before this great body. My aim over the course of this hearing is to provide you a sense of how building big, beautiful infrastructure is at the top of President Trump's priorities and how we can all work together in a bipartisan effort. And I would just note that for 9 years I sat where you sat, and I would tell you it's much more fun to sit where you're at than where I'm at. But it's good to be here with you all. I took office nearly 6 months ago, and in my first full day on the job, we experienced a sobering reminder of why the department's top priority is and always must be safety. The 67 lives lost by a mid-air collision of an Army helicopter and a commercial flight over the Potomac was a stark reminder of what's at stake in our most fundamental mission at the Department of Transportation. This tragic episode is also why the construction of a brand new air traffic control system is at the top of our agenda as we get America building again. I want to thank you all for passing one big, beautiful bill, the $12.5 billion, which is a down payment for this build. I know all of you did not vote for the big, beautiful bill, but I believe this portion, the $12.5 billion, I think we would have had unanimous support throughout the committee because you know probably better than anyone else how important our air traffic control infrastructure is, more so than probably anyone else in the country. And so, though everyone didn't vote, I appreciate everyone's support for what we're trying to do. In May, I unveiled a 3 to 4 year plan to execute a complete overhaul of this outdated system. And let's be clear, flying is safe. I fly out of Newark all the time. It's now my most used airport. And we saw glitches in the system a few months ago in the TRACON in Philadelphia that impacts the Newark airspace. And those have exposed some issues within the system as a whole. Our job is to keep air travel safe, which is why I've dedicated my tenure to delivering an all-new a brand new air traffic control system, state-of-the-art, gold-plated, best in the world. Our goal is to make air travel not just safer, but also more efficient with more commercial flights, more drones, more air taxis, and an ever-expanding commercial airspace as well. This is the time, if we're going to be able to meet all those needs, to rebuild this system. Our department has also moved swiftly to streamline the hiring process for new air traffic controllers. You all know we're 3,000 controllers short. And so in May, we launched a spring initiative to supercharge our controller fleet with lucrative bonuses to controllers who are eligible for retirement. We're asking, they're the most experienced too, by the way. We're asking them to stay longer. We're giving them a 20% upfront cash bonus to stay beyond their eligible date of retirement to try to fill this gap. We have already cut months off the hiring pipeline as we're enrolling new people into the FAA Academy in Oklahoma City. This is not, and we're probably going to talk about this, there's not one silver bullet to shoot on air traffic control. We have to take all of these multiple steps to move as quickly as possible to get more young people into the business of air traffic control and keep more of those experienced controllers on the payroll. And as you know, as a graduate of the academy comes out, they just don't go into a tower and not certified. It takes time to certify in the different airspaces across the country. So I ask for your patience, but also we have some money in the big, beautiful bill to help with that. We're hoping in 2026 to get to 2,500 new controllers out of the academy and start their certification process. Recent changes at Newark Liberty International Airport have demonstrated the effectiveness of our proposal to fix the aging system. And just real quick, the runway was completed almost 2 weeks before schedule. One of our problems is that we have companies that we deal with at mid-management level. I'd just say the DoD gets the top-level management. They're the first project on the docket for many of these companies. We are now getting CEO engagement. Verizon helped us. They laid a fiber line between the Philly Tracon and N90 within a month. We took another month and tested that line. So in 2 months after you saw what happened in Newark, we had the new line up and running, alleviating those issues we had with telecom. And I think that's just, I know some of you have asked, can the FAA do this? We can, and I think this is a great example of how we're thinking about and engaging corporate America differently to accomplish the goals that you're going to set for us. I know I'm out of time, and we don't have a lot of time today. I know we're going to talk about surface reauthorization. I'm happy to have a conversation about that as we hopefully together in a bipartisan fashion come up with a plan for America on how we rebuild this infrastructure. I appreciate the time of the committee, and I look forward to your questions. And with that, I don't know if I get to yield back as a witness or not, but I yield back.
We'll turn to Rick Crawford. You're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I'll try to be brief because I only have 15 minutes. Great to see you back here. I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I think it's not lost on us the baptism by fire that you underwent on your first day on the job, and I think you've just done a fantastic job. I want to talk real quick about a couple of things I know that you're attuned to, something I've been working on for quite some time. It has to do with truck parking. It's been a big issue for the trucking industry, our interstate system, and previous administration not authorizing that issue. We need ample and safe locations for truck drivers to be able to rest, and we need to start looking for how to redirect funding for this. IJA provided $7.5 billion for EV charging infrastructure projects and very little results to show for that. So our nation was not and still not at a point where rapid rollouts of charging infrastructure is a pressing issue. In contrast, our trucking industry is certainly not in a position where that transitioning to electrification is a priority, but we do need parking. And so that said, I was happy to see the announcement by the administration of a commitment of $275 million directed to truck parking. However, I believe redirecting funding that was meant for EV infrastructure to support truck parking is actually a step in the right direction. Can you talk about that a little bit? What are the efforts within the agency to explore redirecting EV infrastructure as it applies to truck parking?
Truck parking, we saw in COVID how important our truckers are. Mm-hmm. And so there's two components of this. One, it's the quality of life for our truckers, but also it's a safety issue. We have our trucks parking on on-ramps, off-ramps, in any location they can find. And I think it's important for us to think through how do we provide more truck parking to provide safety for the truckers, but also the other traveling public. Again, a big grant went to Florida, but we are going to continue to focus on the highest needs around the country where we can deploy grants to provide additional truck parking, again, safety and quality of life for the trucker.
Excellent. FY 2020 NDAA, Congress passed the Transit Infrastructure Vehicle Security Act, and our intent was clear in that legislation. That was to prohibit U.S. taxpayer dollars from being used to purchase buses and passenger rail cars from Chinese state-owned entities or supported companies. TIVSA was a necessary step to protect national security, strengthen American manufacturing, and prevent market-distorting Chinese entities from undercutting U.S. transit supply chains. Companies like BYD and RIDE are attempting to exploit the law now through deceptive affiliate creation designed to evade TIVSA's restrictions. I've been working with Representative Khanna on the Stop China Act to strengthen TIVSA, but in the meantime, it's critical that the department implement existing law in full alignment with congressional intent. Can you talk about what your commitment looks like in terms of implementing TIVSA consistent with congressional intent and making sure companies like BYD and RIDE are not permitted to circumvent the law?
Real quick, I know we had grants for no and low emission buses. We're getting a lot of communities that have reached out to us that they're telling us that the no emission doesn't work. They want more low emission options. We're going to work with them on that, but I believe in Buy America. And my good friend Tammy Baldwin, Democrat senator from my great state, the greatest state maybe, Wisconsin, is hard on this, and I would agree with her assessment that we do have to make sure that at all costs that these products are built in America, and we have to get around the gimmicks.
Thanks, Secretary. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Rick.
Yeah, thanks, Secretary, for being here. Appreciate it. So we chatted a little bit last week on the phone about the last issue you had brought up, but I want to ask you about the outstanding grants. So this morning you announced, the Secretary Department announced another 415 grants that you have cleared so that local governments, state governments, and so on can negotiate and move forward on getting these dollars obligated. So you're about 1,900 cleared out of 3,200 grants cleared, and I appreciate that. It's always, what have you done for me lately? And so there's still another 1,300 grants out there. And these are grants that are going to be, implemented on the ground, building projects, creating local jobs in construction. Do you have a specific timeline to finish the review of the remaining 1,300 grants so that communities can get on with job creation?
I appreciate the question. My hope is that in late summer, early fall, we can complete that review. And there's a lot of questions on this. Can I just have 20 seconds to say that we have been left 3,200 grants. That is a historic number from the last administration. I know you all want your grants, but I don't think everyone recognizes the workload that was left to us. There was announcements without the work done to do grant agreements. We are working through it, and I would just note for the committee that at the first quarter of every year of the last administration versus this quarter, we are getting more grants completed and out the door. But I know that's not enough for everybody. Everyone wants their grants right now, and so we are working diligently to do that as quickly as possible.
Well, we're going to certainly keep pushing that. There's 3 in my district that were part of this new tranche, and looking forward to the rest of mine in my district. And so I'll speak for me, but I'm sure everyone else has the same view about the grants, including the Skagit Transit Maintenance and Operation Facility. Still waiting on that one. I'll ask a second question quickly here, just about roadway safety. I argue it is a federal interest to invest in sidewalk and bike paths because we have a roadway death epidemic in this country. 20% of those roadway deaths involve someone on a bike or someone walking. We need to separate those folks from the cars and trucks so that the folks driving cars and trucks know that they are themselves separated from bikes and ped. That's why there's a federal interest in decreasing the number of these roadway deaths as much as possible. So I'm going to make that argument as we move through surface transportation to ensure that we're funding these Safe Streets for All grants, which you're moving forward on, which I appreciate, but those are planning grants, and we need to implement those and fund these local projects so that people have safe places to walk. Cars and trucks know that those people won't be on the roads using the road as a sidewalk, but actually using a sidewalk as a sidewalk.
I would welcome further conversation. I think there's some places where you are right, we need separation, but in other places I think we're actually commingling automobile traffic with bikes and pedestrians, and that it can also be a danger as well, and I think there's a balance to how we do this. There's also a congestion issue that comes up as well when we convert traffic lanes to bike lanes, but I'm obviously open to that conversation and implementing the will of the Congress.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Secretary Duffy, with the creation of a federal infrastructure bank, which would leverage private investment only, supplement the existing funding tools that are necessary to do our infrastructure projects? Do you believe that?
I do think there is a role for private capital to come into play. I would agree with that. And by the way, a lot of the private capital that I do see coming in is foreign private capital. It'd be great if we saw American private capital, because some of these returns are pretty good. I'd like to see more American private capital come into the projects where it's appropriate for that private capital to be deployed.
Most rail projects take place under existing right-of-ways. However, routine maintenance and replacement projects on existing rights-of-ways can still trigger a burdensome, unnecessary environmental reviews under NEPA. Should routine maintenance and infrastructure projects automatically qualify for a NEPA categorical exclusion? Is that a possibility?
That's a broad question, but with balance, yes, I do think they should fall within a categorical exclusion, yes. Again, and we're working to streamline the NEPA process, and I know a lot of you want to see your projects move faster and more cost effectively, and I think we'll do our part in Congress, but I need the help of the department. I need the help of the Congress also to think through how we navigate NEPA more effectively, because it's costing too much and taking too long.
So as Congress begins to work on new surface transportation reauthorization legislation, how important is permitting process reform to reduce the time and cost of improving our railroad system?
Well, when 30-40% of the cost of a project can be with consultants and permitting, we're losing valuable dollars, which, by the way, we're all fighting for more money to do more projects. We're losing that money that's not turning dirt. So I think it's critically important that you all consider that in a way that we can still protect the environment, but we can move these projects way faster and be smarter. We've been doing this for, 40 years? We can learn from the work we've done in the past and how we can move more quickly in the future, and what impacts the environment and what doesn't, and let's be smarter about it.
Thank you very much. Looks like my time is running out. Yield back.
Eleanor.
Mr. Secretary, Union Station in the District of Columbia, which is owned by the federal government, is a vital local, regional, and national intermodal transportation hub. However, it has not undergone major innovation since the 1980s. It's a long time. The Union Station expansion project represents a historic transportation and economic development opportunity for the nation's capital and the National Capital Region, but billions of dollars are needed to carry it out. Does the administration support Union Station expansion project, and if so, how does the administration plan to carry it out?
That's a great question, and I would agree with you. It's a very important part of transportation here in the DC metro area. I would like to talk about the project more, get smarter on the project. I would just note that we are looking at doing Penn Station, also very important. And again, I think it shows a commitment from this administration and this president that we don't have silos. We want to look at all of our modes of transportation, including passenger rail.
Well, let me know when you know how to carry it out. After the tragic mid-air collision near DCA earlier this year, I wrote a letter urging DOT to require all helicopters operating near DCA to use their transponders, except in the case of national security emergency or the transport of the president and vice president. At a May hearing in this committee, an FAA official stated that helicopter flights related to law enforcement, national security, and the transport of government officials are not required to use transponders near DCA. These overly broad exceptions jeopardize the safety of the airspace near DCA. Will you commit to requiring helicopters operating near DCA to use their transponders except in case of national security, emergency, or the transport of the president and vice president?
You raised an important issue. That's something we are looking at and going to consider. You do know that we have restricted the airspace around DCA, that Route 4 is not being run anymore unless it's for the president or life-saving or law enforcement missions, as well as we put a cap on flights coming out of the Pentagon. The paramount issue here is the safety of the traveling public. And if we're going to run military missions or run VIPs out of the Pentagon or anywhere else, I would, at first blush, agree. We should have the appropriate equipment on those flights.
Mr. Perry.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, Mr. Secretary. Thanks for your response to my letter regarding the I-83 bridge project spanning Cumberland and Dauphin County in the 10th District. said it's under a DOT review. I know that the ranking member also kind of queried you on some of this stuff. I'm just wondering if you have a timeline. We appreciate your involvement and your interest in it, but we'd like some certainty because there's a lot of work being done out there on the approaches, and we want to make sure that there's going to be a bridge to connect to those approaches. So do you have a timeline or anything we can look forward to?
Again, so we are working as quickly as possible. And again, I know how important these projects are. You guys have heard me say this before. I'm pulling out a lot of the green and social justice out of the NOFOs that were required by the last administration, but the Congress did not require. So that has taken us a little bit of time. But again, they gave us almost 1,000 announcements between Election Day and Inauguration Day in the last administration. In the last Trump administration to Biden, it was 100. And Obama to Trump was 50. They did 1,000 for us. And so you all want your projects, but you have to recognize what's been dumped on our plate. And so I get the importance of everyone's districts and everyone's states and everyone's projects. And we are going to continue to work diligently through those.
Mr. Secretary, I got to ask, right?
I know
be
you
a
do.
champion for our district. So let's turn to traffic control modernization. GAO found that over three quarters of the FAA's air traffic control systems were unsustainable or potentially unsustainable or worse. And it looks like we're looking at the FAA's current pace for replacing the facilities as a staggering 300 years, a 300-year timeline. It looks like your program wishes to get to 80 years, which I still find unacceptable. Can you talk about the procurement process and maybe specifically to narrow in on traffic control centers and the use of remote or digital towers to maximize productivity and any changes that you're looking at in the procurement process, which is badly broken?
So the Congress has given unique procurement authority to the FAA. They haven't used it. We are going to use it in this project. But again, you're right. If we are on the current plan, we're over 300 years to replace all the towers, TRACONs, and centers. We are going to need more money from the Congress. This $12.5 billion, you're going to get new telecom, new radio, new voice switches, new radar in one center, which is, these centers are expensive. The most recent center built, I think, was in Alaska in 1967. This is really old stuff. We will need more to do it, but no offense to anybody, but the way Congress spends money, we're talking $31.5 billion to do the full project. And my hope is that we'll have an additional conversation about how we can do that. And I think time is of the essence. We can't wait 300 years. We can't wait 13 years. We need to be doing this now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Mr. Nadler.
Thank you. Secretary Duffy, as recently as last week, you again attacked the MTA, claiming there's a surge in subway assaults and accusing the agency of withholding information. But many of your statements misrepresent the facts and ignore documentation already provided to your department. I want to address some of those claims directly. First, are you aware that major crime in the transit system, including assaults, is down 3% since last year and down 8% since 2019?
Well, I would say
that's a yes or no question.
Well, no, that's wrong. The assaults that we've seen are up 60% with MTA in the system since 2019.
Why do you continue to ignore this and lie about this in your public comments?
Well, my question, why do you continue to lie about people being lit on fire in subways or pushed in front of trains? You should be fighting to make sure your subways are safe.
Our subways
you want people to ride subways. Let's make subways safe.
Reclaiming my time. Our subways are safe, and I gave you the statistics.
They're wrong.
Second of all, you claimed earlier this year that there was no study of traffic impacts before the implementation of the congestion relief program. Are you aware that in 2023, your office received a nearly 4,000-page environmental assessment that thoroughly analyzed traffic patterns, transit operations, and environmental impacts in detail?
Are you aware that your governor did not want to move forward?
I asked if your question. Are you aware that you got?
Pricing,
are you aware that?
Want the electorate to know that?
Answer my question. Are you aware that you got that 4,000-page environmental assessment?
That went to the last.
Yes or no?
To the last administration, they got it.
You got it. If so, why do you continue to deny its existence?
I haven't denied any existence.
Okay.
That's not-
Secretary Duffy,
our-
as you know, your
our-
attempt to
but
revoke the...
you're mischaracterizing what my complaint has been. That our roads are not for the elitists, the ones who have money or someone pays for their vehicle to drive into a cordoned area. I believe everyone
All right,
has
that's
a
my
right
next-
to use our roads. So if
Secretary-
you can't afford because
Secretary
you're poor,
Duffy, as
why
you
should
know-
you be excluded from driving into the city of New
Reclaiming
York?
my time, Mr. Secretary, as you know, your attempt to revoke the MTA's congestion pricing approval came after the program had already undergone a full NEPA review and was formally cleared by the Federal Highway Administration. Can you identify a single precedent under any Republican or Democratic administration for unilaterally rescinding approval of a program like this after it completed the full environmental review process?
So the example is that you have never had a cordon pricing situation like
Oh,
this.
yes,
where
there have
only
been.
the elites.
What do you
only
call
the-
the New Jersey Turnpike?
There's a road right next to it. Every road we have, you can take
Secretary
an
Duffy,
additional
why
road
do you
to
continue
access
to
your
lie
point
about
of
New York
destination.
City?
You're lying. Don't call me a liar here.
I'm
This is
calling
the
you a
one-
liar because
this
you've
is the
lied
one- This
continually.
is the one area where you have to pay $9 every single day to access Manhattan. That doesn't
Not
exist
to act-
anywhere else.
Every single program where you have told highways is under the same
Why don't we
program.
fight for the people who can't afford to pay that pricing? Why shouldn't everyone have access to the city? And if you're going to force people into a subway, make sure it's safe. Very simple.
It's safe. I gave you the statistics.
I gave you the stats.
Well, your statistics are wrong.
Time has expired.
Man.
Let's remember the decorum in the committee room, please. Mr. Babin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you, Secretary Duffy, as well, for being here today. We appreciate the good work you've been doing at DOT. It's good to have you back in the people's house. Mr. Duffy, the first thing I want to do is congratulate you on your new role as acting NASA administrator as well. As the representative of NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston and the chairman of the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, I know you're going to be doing a great job. Once you get settled in your new role, though, we'll be asking you to testify on the budget request from Office of Management and Budget. And in the meantime, I would like to have your assurance, if you can, that you will not take any actions pursuant to fiscal year 26 budget requests until Congress acts on OMB's proposal. And as an example, such as layoffs, program terminations, et cetera.
Listen, I'm going to follow the will of Congress, and just as you know, I'm the interim administrator. I imagine the administration is going to nominate someone. I do think it's important that, and you would agree, we have to start to move forward. There are very critical timelines that we have to meet, and I'm happy to work with you and your committee and the Congress to make sure we're doing that.
Good to hear. Thank you. And turning to the Department of Transportation, the FAA's Office of Commercial Space Transportation, which goes by the acronym AST, issues licenses for launch and reentry activities for commercial space launch providers. Can you assure me that AST will prioritize launch and reentry licensing rather than activities beyond its statutory bailiwick, and which was a real problem over the last 4 years of the previous administration?
I can commit to that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thirdly, I also proudly represent the 36th District of Texas, which includes the Port of Houston. We boast the largest port in the state of Texas by gross tonnage and industry that supports 1.54 million jobs throughout our state. And as you might guess, port infrastructure issues are critical to my district and indeed to the entire coastline of Texas, which hosts 6 deepwater ports. Secretary Duffy, as Congress continues with important work reauthorizing infrastructure programs this year, can I count on you to work with us to ensure that our ports have the support and the resources that they need?
100%.
Amen. Thank you. Time permitting, I've still got a few seconds. Mr. Secretary, the lack of safe and accessible truck parking has been a top concern for many in the trucking industry for many years. The department recently highlighted truck parking infrastructure as a priority. Can you elaborate on what specific actions, funding mechanisms, or guidance would include to address the nation's severe truck parking shortage?
Yeah, I would just note that I don't think this was a past priority. I think, I know this administration does care about truck parking and the safety of truckers and our traveling public. So we've already deployed one large grant agreement with Florida. We have others in the works, and we're going to continue to work with all of you to make sure that our truckers are treated fairly and our public is safe.
Amen. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Yield back.
Thank you, Congressman.
Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Duffy, thank you for being here. We appreciate your testimony, and we look forward to working with you, even though we may find ourselves in disagreement with much of what you're doing. A couple of things I want to try to really understand. There's some 3,200 competitive grants that were already awarded to states and cities, transit districts, tribes, airports, as well as ports. These are all in abeyance. Those have been stalled. Apparently, you're now working through each of those from your previous testimony. And you've also said that you intend to give preference to all DOT grants, loans, contracts, et cetera, that assist and that do assist state contracts to communities with marriage and birth rates higher than the national average. An interesting prioritization. I want to now focus on community transportation programs. These are the UTCs. And in writing about this in early May, or speaking about this in early May, you said, the previous administration turned the Department of Transportation into the Department of Woke, whatever that might be. I focused the department on what matters: safety, making travel great again, and building big, beautiful infrastructure projects. The American people have zero interest in millions of their tax dollars funding research at the intersection of gender non-conforming people, infrastructure inequality, I'll repeat that, as though the American people have no interest in infrastructure inequality, or whether the road improvement projects are racist. It's time to inject a dose of reality back into our higher education system, and that starts with ending these wasteful and divisive grants. Turns out that 7 grants have been terminated. All 6 of those 7 grants are in blue states. One, specifically the University of California in Davis, National Center for Sustainable Transportation, a $12 million grant accelerating equitable decarbonization. City College of New York, University of Southern California, Pacific Southwest Regional Transportation Center, New York University, San Jose State Mineta Consortium for Emerging Efficient and Safe Transportation, a $6 million research on intermodal inequalities, particularly how improvements to auto travel can benefit higher income, often white drivers, while depressing transit ridership potential and depriving it. University of New Orleans, that would be, I believe, a red state. Johns Hopkins University Center for Smart Transportation. Apparently, in canceling these grants, you're carrying out your policy. I don't know what the birth rate might be in these various areas, but I would suggest it's probably going to meet your requirement of marriage and birth rates being higher than the national norm. It seems as though you've gone through a process of simply looking for words and canceling those projects. I think that is a terrible way to conduct policy. You've got a couple of seconds to respond. I guess we have no time to respond.
I would just note that I didn't hear the committee complain when there were 400 grants that were announced in 2012, and the prior secretary did not move them forward. But now that I have 3,200, you want to complain that I haven't got them done fast enough for you. You can name a few grants that I have canceled, and I look again, equitable decarbonization. We lose 40,000 people a year on our roads. I think there are better uses of our research and our dollars to make sure we can keep people safe. You might like equitable decarbonization, or you might like improvements to auto travel, how it can benefit, or how it does benefit higher income individuals over white drivers. I mean, the racial stuff as opposed to keeping people safe, that's my drive. That's my mission. And again, I'm working, and I'll send a chart to you, Congressman, if you want, that'll show that we are doing more in the first quarter of this administration compared to the first quarter of every year of the last administration. So I love the complaints, but that's actually not true.
I do not doubt your hard efforts. But what I doubt is the method in which you are carrying it out. Mr. Chairman, I'm sure the Secretary appreciates it.
And if you want to have an additional conversation, I'm happy to have a phone call with you on why we're doing it, and we're going to allow people to rescope as well, and if there's other good research they can do, we're going to work with them.
You'll get a phone call this afternoon.
I can't, well,
Thank you
maybe
for
tomorrow.
the opportunity.
Tomorrow, maybe.
Mr. Rouser.
Tomorrow.
Well, Mr. Secretary, welcome back to Congress.
Mr. Rouser, thank you.
Great to see you, and you're doing a fabulous job. I thought I'd give you a little time to lay out the priorities of the administration as it relates to surface reauthorization. The big key points that you want to make sure the administration wants to make sure that we get right, because this is important work.
It really is important work, and that's why tomorrow I've invited all the DOT secretaries or staff from your states to come in and have a conversation about their priorities for surface reauthorization. Again, I think it's important that we all work together with the states, with the Congress, and Democrats and Republicans and the department. We want to focus on innovation. How can we do things differently, more cost effectively? I think we want to focus on the efficiency at which we deliver these projects. There's too many stories across your districts about the time frame that it takes to build a project because of all the requirements that are put around the money that's given for the specific project. And so I think those two things I think are critical as we look on better deliverables. And as we have a shortfall in the trust fund, could we spend that money better and have it stretch further?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right on target. The proliferation of new, more narrow grant programs under IJA has created a complex and inefficient landscape for states and local governments seeking federal funding. Given the success of established program frameworks such as the National Highway Performance Program, the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, and the Highway Safety Improvement Program, would you agree consolidating some IJA programs into broader, more flexible formula programs could streamline the funding process and therefore reduce administrative burden and ultimately allow states more effectively address their unique transportation challenges?
It could.
I definitely think it could. And one last thing here. You're probably familiar with the Port Infrastructure Development Program. PIDP, as it's referred to, has historically faced issues due to the onerous process of getting grant contracts in place. During the previous administration, the grant awardees reported the Maritime Administration continually moved the goalposts, requesting excessive information previously not mentioned and at times seemed completely irrelevant. How many times have we heard that? This ultimately increases administrative costs for applicants and impacts the effectiveness of the program. So the administration's proposed budget includes $1 billion in PIDP funding for fiscal year 2026. What is the department doing to improve the process for getting the money out the door so proposed projects can be built more quickly?
Well, again, we are working quickly to get as much money out the door as possible. As whether some people don't like the president, others of us love him, he likes to build. And that was the first thing he told me. He wants to build big, beautiful projects. He loves ports, he loves roads, he loves bridges, he loves the airspace. And so it's really helpful to have a president who is going to join us in this effort in radically improving our infrastructure. To my last point, though, there is work that we're doing right now to streamline some of the permitting process. It can bring us a lot closer to moving projects faster.
Very good. I yield back. My time's expired.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome back to Capitol Hill, Secretary Duffy. Good to see you.
You too.
Air traffic controllers perform a very high-stress job in a very high-stress environment, correct?
Yes, they do.
And even before Donald Trump took office, there was a shortage of air traffic controllers. They're having to work overtime. That adds to the stress, does it not?
That's correct.
And I'll recall a March cabinet meeting where we were aware of you standing up for the air traffic controllers from the chainsaw of Elon Musk. And I want to thank you for standing up, even though at that meeting you were having to account for how many people had been terminated under DOGE. Secretary Duffy, on May 15th, this committee held a hearing discussing the Federal Aviation Administration, and during that hearing, I asked the FAA's Deputy Chief Operating Officer a very simple question. How many air traffic controllers have left the FAA since January 20th of 2025? He didn't have an answer. So I'll ask you now, can you tell this committee how many air traffic controllers have left the FAA since January 20th of 2025?
I don't.
And please don't tell me you don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that. But what I can tell you is that
This is such an important job. It's such.
Well, Congressman, I would say that we have new controllers that come in every month, and controllers are eligible for retirement, so they leave.
But are you trying to tell us that you don't know how many air traffic controllers are in the building, and how many have left the building? How many are getting ready to come into the building?
They're not in the building. They're in towers and
well, I'm
centers
just
and
speaking
trade
figuratively.
Yeah, no. So what I can tell you is what I've done to keep those controllers from retirement when they're at the age of retirement, and the 56 is the age of retirement, but a lot of them can retire at 50, 51. We're asking them to stay on, and we're driving more controllers into the academy and out to be trained. And so, again, I can't force people to stay beyond their age of retirement.
Let me move on. I appreciate it. I don't have to remind you of the immense responsibility that comes with leading the Department of Transportation. And now, on top of that, you're also serving as an interim administrator of NASA, another role with serious demands and high stakes. And you're a family man. You got what, 7, 8 children? How many?
I'm 9, but close.
9?
9.
You got 9 children. You're a full-time daddy, full-time job at the FAA, full-time NASA. How can you're Superman? How can you be doing all of this?
So, some people might ask how I can do 9 kids, and I do it. And again, I love our country, and we need someone in the interim to make decisions and make sure we're leading forward with NASA. I'm honored that the president has given me this short-term capability, but that is not going to impact my ability to do the important work of the DOT.
Well, I really would like to know how many air traffic controllers have left the FAA since January 20th of 2025.
I'll follow up,
Mr. Johnson. I
Thank
think
you.
there's 14,000 total, so it'd be kind of hard to know. Mr. Boss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. So apparently, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee has some kind of eyes that we don't know about because he took my first 2 questions. But as a Marine, I'm going to adapt and adjust. Okay. His second question was about, and I'll explain this. You and I both support American-made goods and strengthening the supply chain. In the National Defense Authorization Act of 2020, Congress established a prohibition on the use of federal transit funds to procure passenger rail cars, trains, buses, and from Chinese and state-owned support groups like CRRC. Any expansion to prohibit requires contracts that were signed before 2020, and no significant modifications can occur, according to that law. The Biden administration provided Chicago Transit Authority with $200 million last year for rail replacement, and I have concerns that some of those funds could be up and being used to purchase from CRRC. So my question is, given the requirement of the law, Chinese state-owned rail manufacturers like CRRC, has DOT conducted reviews of the Chicago Transit Authority to continue that they might be using these funds illegally?
I am not aware of that. I will circle back with FRA and I'll get you an answer on that. But I'll tell you this: I am committed to the Buy American provisions, and making sure that we are not funding Chinese companies to build product in the U.S.
Thank you. Also, both of you and I come from rural America, God's country, as we call it. And I hear from my constituents all the time that repairing rural roads and smaller cities, small towns are forced to compete for a smaller pie all the time. Mr. Secretary, do you think it would be beneficial for rural America to have a dedicated funding stream for rural and agricultural road improvements work to invest in the first mile and the last mile?
Listen, I do think it's important that we pay special attention to rural America. Oftentimes it can be forgotten, but it's great in this body and with the secretary who comes from rural America to understand the hardship even applying for grants, and how do we help them access more dollars to make sure their infrastructure meets the 21st century.
Well, I want to close out my last few seconds here by simply saying I think you're doing a great job, and I would want to let you know that in my committee, the VA committee, when Doug Collins, Secretary Collins, gave testimony, I think it's wonderful to watch former legislators deal with legislators, and I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Carson.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary. Welcome back to the committee, sir. I want to raise a safety issue you may not be aware of, delayed implementation of secondary barriers in cockpits. Over a year ago, the FAA announced that they were starting the implementation of secondary cockpits on new aircraft. The requirement I authorized back in 2018 and reaffirmed in the 2024 reauthorization. These barriers, sir, were recommended by safety professionals after the horrific deaths of 9/11. We harden cockpit doors, but at some point during flights, the doors are open when pilots need coffee or they need to take a break or get a sandwich or take a restroom break. During these well-known periods of vulnerability, sir, flight attendants have often been very masterful in placing beverage carts before the flight deck. And I appreciate that labor groups, especially pilots, have been some of the strongest advocates for these safety devices and to keep crew and passengers safe, but we shouldn't have to rely on beverage carts. The very slow implementation to fix a well-known security risk, I think, is shameful. We can do better. Mr. Secretary, do you have any insights as to why implementation is taking so long, sir?
I don't. I will take a look at the issue, and I'd be happy to follow up and have a conversation with you on how we can, again, continue to drive safety on our aircraft.
Any personal insight? Because I know you've been a member of this committee. I served with you.
I was having a hard time.
As to your personal feelings about these secondary barriers.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Secondary.
Oh, secondary. Listen, I would want to look at a number of different variables, but obviously we saw with 9/11, and we all, if you fly, you see this moment where the pilot will come out and use the restroom, and we do have our flight attendants there with, barricading with their carts. Again, I would like to look at all the issues around it, but I think you bring up a good point, and happy to look at it further and talk to you about it.
Thank you. I'm willing to submit questions to your team, and we can talk about it over.
That'd be perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. LaMalfa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for joining us, Secretary. Great to have you out here. I appreciate your efforts to hit the ground running as Secretary with so many key issues in our country. Quick thank you on a project up in far northern California, the Tule Lake Airport. The FAA had mandated at least 13 years ago a safety fence to be built around that airport, and it's been really nothing but fooling around since, waiting for various reports. So it's finally moving along. It's much appreciated. Thank you for your people doing that. Now, California High-Speed Rail. This was passed in 2008, 17 years ago, a rail project from SF to LA that would be supposedly a high speed, and at a price at that time of $33 billion. We know now that the price is going to be somewhere around $128 to $130 billion. You've conducted a review on that. In that 17 years, they've only been able to put together $17 billion at best via state bonds, 2 different grants at the federal level, and a little bit of carbon tax money. So 17 years, $17 billion, they're $110 billion short. And their first segment, which is going to be from Merced to Bakersfield, they're calling it get this, the early operating segment of something that should have been done in 2020. They hope to have it done by 2033, early operating. These people are funny. That plus, Mr. Fong's here. I was going to make a Bakersfield joke, but anyway, they're way behind on this, and you've conducted a review on should federal money, is it even upholding the promise? Is it even upholding the commitments? How has that review gone as you started that review earlier this year on further federal money going to that?
I appreciate the question, and I'd ask you to stay tuned on that. I appreciate your attendance as we went to California. You're right. I mean, I'm not opposed to high-speed rail. You have it in Europe and Japan and China, but if we're going to spend billions of dollars, I think the American people and the taxpayer expect that you're going to build high-speed rail. And to your point, Congressman, I don't see it. It's hard to see a pathway forward where they're already, 16 years in and $15 billion spent, and not one high-speed track has been laid. And it used to be from LA to San Francisco, now Merced to Bakersfield, not the two mass population centers of California. And so I want to look for good projects that are actually going to be built and let the American people see what high-speed rail feels like and how fast it moves people. By the way, and I appreciate you taking a tomato for the team.
Right on. We grow lots of them out there.
Protesters threw a tomato at him.
The Biden administration had basically an EV mandate that looks like a backdoor method towards CAFE standards to have high mile-per-gallon vehicles being forced upon the American public. What's your view of what's happening on that department's efforts to repeal the Biden EV mandate?
Well, so we're redoing the standard. Hopefully next summer we'll have that done. But again, 51 miles a gallon was not feasible or reasonable. They included EVs. I don't think the Congress anticipated that EVs be included in a fuel economy standard. And so we're gonna rework that rule the way that Congress intended and deploy more common sense. And the amount of money that is added to the cost of a car, we estimate $1,500 to $2,000 a car for the taxes or the carbon credits that have to be purchased for a fleet that can't meet the unattainable standard. Again, we're punishing the American taxpayer. That doesn't mean we don't want efficiency, we don't want to have options, but this is something different than that, is trying to drive an outcome by the consumer, and I think the consumer should always have the right to choose.
It steals options from people. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thanks to you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Titus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary. You began your speech by talking about how important it is to have safety in the Department of Transportation. I completely agree. I'm the ranking member of the subcommittee on railroads and pipes and hazardous materials. I want to talk to you about rail safety. As you know, Vice President Vance supported a rail safety bill. The President has supported rail safety, but it's been over 2 years since the Palestine incident, and we don't have a rail safety bill. I wonder what your position is, how you're going to push this forward, what you see should be in that rail safety bill.
Well, I have enough respect. That's in the purview of the Congress, but I do think that should be grappled with, debated, and how do we drive safety? East Palestine was horrific for those who live there and nearby there. And again, I would join your heartfelt effort to make our rail system safer.
I appreciate that. And one of the aspects of rail safety is that the Class 1 railroads have requested a safety waiver from you. So this is where this is your purview that would allow them to reduce visual track inspections from twice a week to twice a month. Ranking Member Larson and I wrote you about this, suggesting this would not be a good idea, but the trains claim that this would allow them to use ATI, automated track inspection. Is there anything that's keeping them from using that now? And can you comment on where that waiver is? And
yes, we're thinking through that now. And again, I look at automated track inspection and driving safety and what can be gleaned from this technology versus the human eye. I think there's potentially a real differential. I am concerned about the employment side within the rail industry as well. But I think there's a lot of technology, whether we're seeing cracks in tracks or we're seeing overheated bearings or we're seeing issues on wheels. I think these cameras and technology can advance us light years in driving the safety and preventing early some of these derailments that are, as we know, are catastrophic.
Well, I think technology is helpful too, but we've heard testimony that 17 of 23 key track defects can't be seen by this technology. They require the human eye, so I'd hate to see us trade that expertise for something that's kind of trendy.
And I think that would be a great conversation that we could have together. Let's look at what we're seeing in data. What are you seeing? And I think it's just right. We want to get this right. And that's what my focus is, because in the end, all of us care about safety, and what are we doing to drive that?
Well, thank you, and thank you for your commitment to upholding the two-man crew that you mentioned in your confirmation hearing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I yield back.
Mr. Burchett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. As the 435th most powerful member of Congress, generally a lot of my great questions have already been asked, so when I ask them, the first response you should say is, that is an incredibly gifted question, and I'll struggle to answer it, so that people will know that I'm on top of this issue. The first thing is, the Tennessee Department of Transportation representatives will be in attendance at your press event tomorrow. I'm pretty close to most of those folks. I worked 16 years in the state legislature, and they are just hardworking public servants. Do you think they'll be allowed to provide input and their priorities for surface transportation reauthorization?
That was a brilliant comment and a remarkable question. The answer to that is, yeah, we do want, listen, they're on the ground. We want to hear their feedback, and that was the purpose of setting tomorrow up and bringing them all in and having listening sessions and roundtables.
And I know you're going to be announcing the priorities for the next highway bill tomorrow, of course. Can you give a preview of some of those priorities?
Again, I don't want to front run. I do think it's important to get data, get feedback, get information before I come out and say what I think we should do. And again, I think we're going to have a great collaborative effort. I think we all hear from our state DOTs what they want to see us do, but I'd like to have those conversations before we advance that conversation.
Okay. Do you think you'll have any discussion over safety or work zone bridges, truck parking, celebrating project delivery? And I'm very much afraid of autonomous vehicles, and I'll tell you why. Because I remembered our first meeting when I was the county mayor, and they talked about how that was going to be the greatest thing ever and that we would control it at the local level. And I thought, that's going to be a disaster, because if somebody doesn't like you, are they going to have the ability to turn your vehicle off? And at the national level, I'm all about freedom. I collect old motorcycles. Most of them just break down. They're mostly boat motors. Somebody's just going to throw them off the side of their boat, but they boat anchors, I guess I should say. But and I worry about people's freedom, and I hope you take that into consideration when we move. I know it's going to happen, but it scares the daylights out of me.
I 100% agree with you, and it's one thing I think we all grapple with as this technology advances. Some of those advancements can inhibit personal freedom, and we have to grapple with those issues.
Real quickly, air traffic control modernization. I hope that's going to be a priority. I know you mentioned it in New Jersey and other areas, and I hope that. Could you briefly say something on that?
So 100%. We want to do this across the country. You gave us $12.5 billion that started in the House, and I'm grateful for the money that the House gave us. You're going to see us move faster and see this build. We don't snap our fingers. It takes time to lay fiber, but we are using copper. We are using floppy disks. This technology is really old, and I think it hasn't been done in the past because it's really hard. And I don't think this body has had faith in the FAA. Next Gen has, I think, been a complete failure. So we have the American people, the Congress, the DOT, the President, the FAA. We're all on the same page of making this a reality, because failure is not an option right now.
Right. Well, thank you. I've gone over my time, but I would tell you that some of the folks up here are still listening to 8-track tapes. So floppy disks might be in the future for them. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor says he's using 8-track tapes.
Yes, he is. He's a lot older than I am.
Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Welcome back. It's good to see you. I know you're wearing several hats these days. I'm going to ask you about your role in overseeing the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy.
Thank you.
A couple of months ago, you did a fair amount of press about a portrait, painting of Jesus Christ that you had placed prominently in a meeting area of the academy. And you had said that you were taking it out of the basement and putting it into a place of prominence. So I want to ask you a little bit about that. And I believe you've put a copy of the same painting in your personal office. So I want you to know I have no problem with you decorating your office the way you want. I understand your Catholic faith is very central to you. Your office is yours to decorate in any way you want. But I'm troubled by this notion of this place of prominence in a room, in this case, the Elliott MC room at the Academy, which is the place where they have mandatory meetings, where they have honor code hearings, disciplinary hearings for cadets. And I guess I want to just ask you, overseeing an institution that is multicultural, that is secular, that is a public institution, what kind of message do you think that sends to the cadets who may not be Christian, may not be religious, or might be part of a Christian sect that objects to the kind of portrait that you've placed in that position of prominence?
I would just note that we have the freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. And this painting was in this place of prominence for, I believe, 70 years. And it was folded up and moved to the basement.
So the basement was a chapel. It was put into the chapel by your predecessor, not put away to be hidden in a basement, right? That's misleading, Mr.
Secretary. It was folded up and put in the basement of the chapel.
It was refurbished and then placed in a position in the chapel. But it was also the history, Mr. Secretary. You know this, I think. It started out in a chapel. This is a painting that started out in a chapel.
They actually folded the painting up, and now it's being restored. It has to be unfolded to put back in its place of prominence. This is Christ on the water. These are sailors, and it has a lot of history within the Merchant Marine Academy. And I love your attention to this Christ on the water photo, but I think this Congress, and it's not in your body, but this is the most...
So what's the message to Jews and Muslims and Hindus and non-religious folks?
We all live together. Listen,
in their disciplinary proceedings.
We all accept everyone's religion, and this is a painting. We don't. I don't know if you have any anti-Semites here. I don't think you do. I hope not.
You don't think the Establishment Clause prohibits favoring a single religion over all others?
Listen, we're not. This is a historic painting.
Historically was in a chapel.
It's a historic painting. And I have no objection to it being moved. I've actually called for it to be taken out of the basement and put back in its place of prominence.
Mr. Secretary,
you also
have put birth rates and marriage rates for the first time into transportation funding formulas. Is that policy or is that
you have midshipmen that are eating off of paper plates and using plastic forks that didn't have hot water for 4 months. So if you want to talk about the Merchant Marine Academy, let's look at how these poor midshipmen have been served by the Congress in the last DOT.
You promised them more funding in your speech to the cadets. How's that going?
They deserve more money, and I need that money from all of you. And I hope you give me the $1.5 billion that's necessary to make this a state-of-the-art academy. But not having hot water for 4 months, that should be what you're concerned about. You don't have paper plates,
and maybe respect the First Amendment while you deliver hot water,
you should be concerned about that.
We have a First Amendment for a reason.
Mr. Mast.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. Thank you for putting that painting in its place of prominence. I'll just give you, would you like to take a minute to continue to respond to this on my time?
If I could, the Merchant Marine Academy has been forgotten, has been discarded. And I'm sorry, the men and women that come out of that academy, if you met them, you would be shocked at how amazing they are, how smart they are, how dedicated they are. Remarkable young men and women. And our country has treated them poorly. And my position is, if you're not going to give the money to fix it, shut it down, or send it to the Navy. But they deserve better. And again, you have mold in showers, you have falling down infrastructure. That is the issue that we should focus on. And by the way, I think we should get the money because, as the president did his shipbuilding EO, if we're going to build ships in America, we need mariners to sail those ships. I would just tell you that the military recruits out of the Merchant Marine Academy at historic levels, they're trying to sign our kids up in their sophomore year. We have more Merchant Marine Academy graduates that go on to be naval aviators, I think more so than the Naval Academy. These are great kids. Let's serve them better. And again, I thank you for your support on moving Jesus out of the basement.
Absolutely. I want to ask you three just quick questions, or bring your attention to three quick things. Just number one, I'd ask for, because I was observing the committee hearings from another room, and I noticed that nobody asked you to come to their district yet. So I believe in first come, first serve. So I just want to say, please take the time, come down to my district. There's a few things that I want to show you, and since I was the first one to ask, that means I get priority.
The senators were much more aggressive on coming to states.
Second thing I'd ask you to just take time to review is the mega grant program. Under the previous administration, there was guidance that if there was a grant received on one front, for example, if you're doing a rail line, obviously rail lines are long, they span entire states and multi-states, that you couldn't necessarily have another grant in a different area. I would ask that you would review that and see if we're going to have the same guidance under the Trump administration than under the Biden administration. And the third point that I would want to bring to you, switching more to the aviation side of things, is parts manufacturers' approval applications, aftermarket parts for aircraft engines, things like that. If we could just have a review of the timelines that the FAA is allowing to go on, just very long periods of time to get these parts approved. It's not something that I think benefits safety in the skies. I don't think that it benefits the passengers and the affordability of air travel when you think about getting these updated parts into aircraft systems. So it's just something that I'd like you to pay attention to, all three of those issues. That's my
I'll take a look at, on the aviation side, I'll take a look at that. I would just note that the FAA has a fantastic safety record, but they move fantastically slow.
There you go.
Duly noted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Brownlee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here this morning. Secretary Duffy, in March, members of this committee wrote the FAA with concerns about the conflicts of interest with SpaceX employees consulting at the FAA. In the FAA's response yesterday, FAA admitted that conflicts of interest existed and that the SpaceX insiders were strangely given waivers. However, the letter didn't address how the Department of Transportation would safeguard the integrity of the system. So can you tell me why were these personnel given waivers, and how is SpaceX competitor information being protected? And how is FAA ensuring that SpaceX will not have an unfair advantage in awarding government contracts?
Thank you for that question. I don't know the letter you have in front of you, but I know how this was set up. I knew that everyone would be concerned about SpaceX coming to the FAA. And what we did was specifically guardrail them off from anything in space. And what they really did was they came and looked at our air traffic control system. They talked to controllers. They talked to our tech people. They actually saw what equipment air traffic controllers were using. And if I'm just really honest with you, I didn't understand how bad it was. Maybe most of you did. And it was through those engineers that were walking through what the problems are and what we have to do to fix it. It was a cascading set of, it's telecom, it's radars back to the 1970s. So to make you feel comfortable, they had nothing to do with anything in space. It truly was air traffic controllers and the equipment that they use. I am committed to being fair with everybody. I want more competition. I want a lot of companies competing in all these spaces.
So are you saying that SpaceX is not going to be in competition for anything around this project?
With regard to the air traffic control rebuild?
Yeah.
So I imagine at some point Starlink could bid on whether there's issues that we could use satellite communications.
Well, do you think there should be guardrails around that?
Well, I guess I would just note that the option of using Starlink was brought up in the last administration, and there was no issue with it. This was not about using Starlink or using cell phone towers. It was really about the infrastructure with copper to fiber. It was the systems that they were using to analyze airplanes on their scopes. That was the true focus. And so, again, I don't want to give any fair disadvantage to one company over the next.
Can you tell me how common it is for these waivers to be given?
A waiver to come in and
a waiver where a company might have a conflict of interest and is waived out.
I would argue there was not really a conflict looking at copper versus fiber. I think all of you would go, that's a really important conversation to have that doesn't have anything about rockets or Starlink. The scopes they use, Starlink doesn't do any of that. 90-some% of this build is going to be, on telecom, is going from copper, which, by the way, just going to give you guys a side note, we were going to spend $800 billion a year in obsolescence fees. 800 million, almost $1 billion in obsolescence fees that we got our telecom providers to give back to us. But our whole rebuild budget was going in obsolescence fees. We got the partnership to stop that, but we have to go to fiber because no one has copper anymore. So that was the mission, not some competitive advantage to Starlink. And by the way, these are like tech guys. These are not business guys. They're like the tech ops guys.
Thank you.
I appreciate the question. Thanks for letting me clarify.
Mr. Secretary, thank you, and we appreciate the partnership we have with the department. I want to lay out 3 problems quickly and 3 potential legislative solutions, and then just give you an opportunity to respond to any and all. First off, I think it's an embarrassment that the same transportation project that Germany can permit in 6 months takes 6 years to permit in this country. I know you share that frustration. And as you no doubt know, an interactive cloud-based review platform can increase review times or reduce review times by 50%. The administration and your department have taken some good moves to move toward more of a cloud-based platform. I've got a bill, the E-Permit Act, that I think would probably be a great partnership with your department that would mandate the use of that cloud-based review platform. That's number one. Number two, there are substantial national security risks posed by having LiDAR manufactured by our adversaries, the Chinese Communist Party and their partners, and then being installed close to sensitive pieces of American infrastructure. I think it's insane to give our adversaries precise details over railways, roads, ports, other pieces of critical transportation infrastructure. So I have a bill that would prohibit taxpayer dollars from DOT going toward projects that would utilize those sort of LiDAR sensors manufactured by our adversaries. Then number three, it's absurd that we have sanctuary cities who ignore federal law, allow anti-ICE rioters to destroy transportation infrastructure, and then those same local governments will turn around and ask the federal government to foot the bill for the repairs. I'm going to be introducing a bill that would make it clear no DOT funds can go to those sanctuary cities. Any reaction on any of those 3 pieces of legislation, sir?
So I'll do the first one last. I couldn't agree with you more. If you allow your city to be burned, or even in LA when we're allowing rioters to destroy our streets, the federal taxpayer should not come back and then rebuild what they allowed to be destroyed. I would concur. I'll also agree. I'd like to look at your bill on LiDAR in China, but you raised a really important point. And the first bill you had was on what?
The e-permit. Cloud-based platform for NEPA review.
I'd like to look at that as well. But at DOT proper, we are trying to consolidate. We have like 12 different programs in regard to grants and then tech and programming and computers. Like everything's different, all under DOT. We want to consolidate, and so we can have a dashboard where all of you can see where your grants are. Your constituents can see where's my grant, how fast is it moving, and then what I want for you to do is, if you want to do oversight with us, I can easily then, you got the documents, I know you have them, just hit a couple buttons and print them off and send them over, and not just for me, but for the next administration as well, to say, hey, it's going to drive transparency, and I think you make it
We cannot realize the golden age of America if it takes us a decade to build anything. Thank you for your cooperation with that, Mr. Chairman. I would yield back.
Thank you, Congressman.
Gentleman yields back. Ms. Wilson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Graves. Welcome back to my classmate, Secretary Duffy. Just this week, the Miami Herald released a report highlighting the need for stronger rail safety commitments in South Florida. In my community, we have high-speed trains going through quiet zones and heavily traveled areas that are crossing at grade. Each of these factors alone creates an unnecessary risk. But together, we've made South Florida home to both the most and 6th most dangerous railroads in the country, according to the Miami Herald, based on deaths per million miles traveled. This is a distinction that I want to end. We need an all of the above approach to address this crisis. That means investing in rail safety programs like consolidated rail infrastructure and safety improvements and railroad crossing elimination programs. And we also need to increase investments in quad gate technology and fencing to help secure highway grade crossings. I'm proud to see the Northeast Corridor moving forward at the federal level, but the North Corridor has been in the works for over 40 years, and we need federal action. Secretary Duffy, in October 2024, the department announced a $25 million infra grant award to Port Miami. This investment will continue to spur growth at Port Miami, an amazing economic engine that is responsible for 340,000 jobs and an economic impact of $61 billion. I want you to advise if the department plans to obligate these funds for this critical infrastructure project in fiscal year 2026.
Maybe starting on that one first. I don't see any issue with us moving forward, obligating that announcement. I'd like to take a look at it as well, but I would see nothing wrong with that. It seems like it would be in line with also the president's priorities as well. In regard to Brightline, I think is what you're referring to. There are way too many deaths there, and I know that it's a big story in regard to just people not following traffic signs. There's some suicides and there's accidents as well. And I commit to working with you to drive down the number of deaths, making investments along that line. So I'd welcome that opportunity. And it's also hard if you're on a train where someone loses their life. It's not like the person or their family that lost their life, but I know many Republicans were on a train where that very thing happened, and it's horrible for everybody involved, and we have to try to get that number to zero.
I have a whole bunch of questions to submit to you for answers, so I'm going to call you because 3 or 5 minutes is not sufficient. So I'll be calling you about the World Cup, support for the World Cup, Broad Causeway and Bay Harbor Islands, North Perry Airport and Pembroke Pines, rail crossing improvements, labor unions, black aerospace professionals, traffic congestion, public transit investment, Port Miami, the North Corridor, and Northeast Corridor.
We are going to have a long conversation, I guess. But FIFA is yes. I want to support that. We have a huge role in FIFA in making sure transit works, and this is a showcase of America. We'll need your help with the resources for that, but yes, we can talk about the others on a phone call.
Thank you.
We'll have to schedule like an hour and a half for that call, I think.
Just a little housekeeping here. 3 minutes is the time. To help keep things on course, I'm going to tap the gavel with 20 seconds to go. And so just be listening for the gavel tap. This is to accommodate all members because we know the Secretary has a hard stop. Mr. Nels.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, I believe the future is very bright, right? The Senate confirmed Mr. Bedford the other day, the FAA administrator. I think he's going to do a great job. You're doing a fantastic job. One big, beautiful bill, $12.5 billion. Down payment, agree. Get the other $8 billion. I think we can do it. I think we'll have bipartisan support. We have to, right? We have $12.5 billion for modernizing the ATC. I think it's bigger than that. I think it's modernizing the NAS, the National Airspace. It's got bringing in the new entrants. We got to bring it all together. It's just more than the ATC. 100%. It's just more than ATC. The Modern Skies Coalition, all on board with your plan, with the president's plan. I think it's great. We're bringing in stakeholders. I'm having monthly meetings with all these stakeholders, these smart people, right? The smart people, the industry leaders, gifted, talented people. We're meeting every month to talk about what is modernizing the ATC. What the hell does that really even mean? So we're bringing all these people together. We're doing good. I know you're doing what you're doing. We will all come together. It's going to take all of us. We owe it to the American people and the people that travel. We owe them the gold standard. We want to claim the gold standard, and we certainly owe it to the 67 lives that were lost over the Potomac. We must do better, and we can do better, and it's going to require all of us to work together. The supersonic, you know, the president out there was talking about supersonic. We should do that. We should get that done. I filed a bill on this thing. to get supersonic. We haven't had it since '73. What are your thoughts on it? Don't you think we need to move in that direction?
100% I agree. We need to allow this, with this new innovation, computer technology, how sound waves bounce off the atmosphere. Yeah, we can do this. We should do this.
We should. I mean, by 2030, United Airlines, they've ordered 15 from Boom. I mean, it's there.
It's real.
The boom won't hit the ground, so those that are concerned about grandma's going to be in her kitchen and the window's going to break is all ridiculous. It's not going to happen. So this is a great thing, and I want to continue to work with you on our legislation to get this and move it forward as it fits right in line with President Trump's goals and objectives. And one other thing, the joint ventures with Allegiant. So we both agree with President Trump that our government must function in a timely manner to truly benefit the American people. To this end, Allegiant and Viva Bus Aerobus joint venture is a great example of this, and their application's been pending for 3.5 years by DOT. The previous administration neglected it, and we just want to make sure that the alliance application for Allegiant and Viva, while allowing legacy carriers, Delta has it. Delta has a deal down with Aeromexico. We need to do this for Allegiant and allow people to travel to the islands. Low carrier people, we got to do this. I need a commitment from you that we'll look into this. It's your signature.
I had a brief on this very issue 6 weeks, two months ago.
Yeah.
I will look at it again, and let's stay in close
I want to talk to you.
coordination
Maybe
on
I'll
it.
see you in Oshkosh next week.
I would welcome that.
Thanks.
I'll be there.
Mr. DeSaulnier.
Thank you. I appreciate following Mr. Nels, who I have the privilege of working on implementation on FAA. So I think I'm going to be on the list like Ms. Wilson, where I'm going to come see you if you will have me come.
If you go to Oshkosh, we could do it there too with
We can go with Troy. I just won't wear his footwear. And I want to congratulate you on Hannah being behind you, and what a great hire that is.
He's been fantastic.
Some things, first of all, I'll do my own district issue. We have a mega grant that I've worked on since we both had dark hair. It's $166 million. It's in the 680 corridor. Major business presence, Chevron, Safeway, AT&T. We work closely with the business community, so I'd like to follow up with you and see where that is. And I have had a bipartisan frustration with multiple departments in Region 9 over so project delivery, I'd love to work with you on that. Getting a project like that out that's been multiple RTPs to get it done that we have consensus on.
I will take a look at that and get back to you on where we're at, and I'm sure Hannah will help with that too.
Okay. We always go to the staff first. We're always in charge.
It's our secret.
I'd like to talk to you about something that we disagree on, but I'd like to do it more in a conversational way. As someone who's been very involved in air quality in California, I've served under Republican governors and Democratic governors on the California Air Resources Board, and the ability to have choice. I was fortunate enough to get the Clean Corridor bill in and passed with billions of dollars for charging stations. And I don't know if you saw the New York Times story recently about the Chinese and BYD. It's a heavily subsidized car company, but we've got to have choices. And regardless of what your feeling is about climate change, there's a market for choices, but they've got to have the infrastructure. So the Chinese now have 3 million, I think, Chinese charging stations. They're closing in on Toyota in terms of capacity. They're dominating the Asian market. How do we work in a way that gives consumers choices? And even though I have a very heavy fossil fuel presence in my district, 5 refineries, Chevron, you wouldn't be surprised in the Bay Area, people are early adapters. So how do we work on this in a way that's agnostic in terms of, as strongly as I believe in climate change, from an economic competitiveness, we're losing the competitiveness in this market to the Chinese?
Well, I like the form of your question. I do believe in competitiveness too, and I believe in personal choice. I don't think this body or the DOT should try to force people to buy things they don't want. And so in northern Wisconsin, EVs don't work so well. There's no chargers, and it's really cold, and batteries don't work well when it's cold. We saw this in Chicago a couple of years ago. So I think in certain regions, in urban areas, it's probably more popular. In more rural areas, in northern areas, it's not as much. And that's why I think people should have the right to choose. And again, I don't think we should put our thumb on the scale one way or the other.
And we could look at subsidies equally. As the fossil fuel industry has been subsidized for decades, This industry has to be subsidized, set up. So that'll be on my list when I come to see you, and I hope Hannah will be in that meeting.
Deal. We'll make sure of it.
3 minutes goes fast. Mr. Stallberg.
Secretary Duffy, it's great to see you again.
You too.
You're doing a great job in baptism by fire the first days. You really did a tremendous job, and we all thank you. Earlier this year, the president made fiscal responsibility a priority, and he asked our department heads to conduct audits of how their agencies were spending taxpayer dollars. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle and the media decided to fearmonger and spread misinformation about what this was meant for the projects across the country, to review them and look at the spending. Could you take a moment to share what the goals of this audit were and what you were able to achieve?
So at DOT, again, the last administration put in a lot of requirements around social justice and around the green priorities, which, by the way, the Congress didn't put those priorities in, the last administration did. So what I've done is tried to pull those out, and it's important because that means that you can put more of that money toward building the project as opposed to all the requirements around the money that the Congress didn't contemplate. And so that has been a key part of it. You've known that we're trying to do more with less in our department, streamline our staffing, all the while protecting the safety positions. But can we do more with less and save the taxpayer money? We've done a lot on contracts. We saved $1 billion in some wasteful contracts where we don't get big deliverables. And we've looked at all those, and we want to make sure that people provide great service for the money that we give, and if you don't, we're getting rid of the contracts.
So I want to be very clear. So a project like the Blotnick Bridge in Minnesota that connects Minnesota and Wisconsin was never in jeopardy.
No.
Those are the type of projects we want, correct?
Of course, great big projects.
Thank you.
I just reviewed Blotnick, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. That's a great project, a great bridge that connects our two states.
There was some fear-mongering about that, so I wanted to make it clear. So in my district, the Duluth International Airport, an airport I know you have flown out of, has the third oldest air traffic control tower in the country. It is in rough condition, and Mr. Secretary, and that's the nicest way I can describe it. Yet, despite the inadequacies, Duluth International Airport provides a critical role in generating local employment by supporting regional aviation activity, joint civil-military operations, and all businesses located in Duluth, roughly 4,000 jobs. It also contributes an estimated $1.4 billion to the economy. First, Mr. Secretary, I would like to extend an invitation for you to visit the Air Traffic Control Tower.
I'd welcome that.
And then second, could you share how critical air traffic control tower infrastructure is to your vision for modernizing air traffic control?
It's critical. Again, a lot of the towers and TRACONs and the centers are becoming dilapidated. And it's our job to actually rebuild them and make them worthy of the greatest country on earth. And therefore, the equipment we put in is also the best in the world.
Our air safety is a gold standard.
Gold standard.
Yeah. I hope this Congress can provide the necessary financial investments to make modernization a reality. Additionally, we need to provide your agency with the flexibility it requires so that towers like Duluth, which is locally owned but FAA operated, are not left behind in your mission to modernize. And I would ask that you would take that into consideration, and this body as well.
100%.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your great work.
Mr. Carbajal, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming here today, Secretary Duffy. I want to extend my gratitude to you and your team for being responsive on my staff's inquiries, my personal inquiries regarding some grant issues in the Goleta and San Ynez areas of my district. While the grants haven't been released, I just want to say I find it very refreshing of the professionalism and the responsiveness of your staff. So I wanted to give you those kudos. Secretary, while we all support infrastructure, we can do more to bring the cost of these projects down as we draft our next highway bill. I'm familiar with recycled asphalt pavement, RAP, and understand that RAP accounts for over 90 million tons of pavement material. This is the most recycled product in the country. Yet many state DOTs lag well below the national average of 20% of their mixes using RAP. I find this odd given RAP brings costs down by using less virgin material, reduces truck traffic, minimizes air emissions, and keeps usable material out of the landfill, while still delivering a superior quality construction material. Can you commit to working with me and our state DOT partners on how we can better educate and incentivize state DOTs to use wrap pavements where appropriate and in their local projects?
100%. I'd welcome that partnership.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, for decades, the federal government has required commercial service airports to use Florentine firefighting foam containing PFAS. The FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024 included my bill, the PFAS Act, and established a new grant program to support airports in transitioning to fluorine-free alternatives. Assuming we get our act together in Congress through appropriations and appropriate the necessary funds, is there an implementation plan in place to facilitate this transition? And two, in the interim, what guidance and assistance is being provided to airports regarding the transition and use of PFAS-free foams?
So I would tell you that do we have an implementation plan yet? We're actually working on a lot of the grants coming out the door in ATC modernization. But as money comes, we will develop a plan. Would welcome consultation with you, the author. But again, this is an important issue to make sure we take toxins out of our communities.
Thank you. As we discuss air traffic modernization, can you share how the department is working with the FAA to ensure these efforts are forward-looking and structured to incorporate continuous process improvements over time rather than looking into outdated systems? And can we touch on the efforts to ensure the system is sufficiently staffed?
So can I just, if I can have a moment of personal privilege, yes, telecom is telecom, fiber is fiber. There's great radar that we're going to be able to, that we have to build them. It's a big deployment. Those are known quantities and entities. The Common Automation Platform, the software that's going to run air traffic control, we're using one system from 1995 and another from 2000. We don't have an off-the-shelf product that's the software, the heart of the brand new system. That's going to take us time to get companies to come in and offer us what they think the product should be and try to sell us their product. So, and we don't have money in the big, beautiful bill for this part of it, but this is the critical part of the infrastructure. I want to get that started because, again, it's going to take us, 6-8 months to pick a company, and then we're going to have to debug it. That could be another 6, 8, 10 months to debug it before it's deployed. So this is the most amount of time it's going to take to get the system right. But it's like you're on your computer, you're using Microsoft 95 versus what's available today. It's like there's so much better technology, and this is the heart of making the system more efficient and safer. And I hope that the Congress will give us the resources to begin that process.
Thank you, Secretary. And again, kudos to your team for being so responsive.
Thank you. And it will be brand new and it will be state of the art. I promise you that.
3 minutes is not 5 minutes. Mr. Mann?
That's my fault.
Taylor, your remarks. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here today, and thank you for all that you're doing for transportation in Kansas and around the country. It's a tremendous undertaking, and you're doing a great job. I represent 60 primarily rural counties throughout central and western Kansas, and every day in the big 1st District of Kansas, my constituents witness the importance of having reliable transportation infrastructure. It's imperative that our highways and roads are drivable, that commercial and cargo aviation are able to efficiently operate, that our railroads are able to deliver goods and grain out of the elevator and into markets. And I appreciate hearing from you today on ways that we can address real transportation infrastructure problems that everyday citizens in Kansas and around the country are facing. I know that the administration under your and President Trump's leadership will lead the way in fixing problems of the past, and look forward to working with you on making the transportation system great again. A couple of quick questions. We've seen how past modernization efforts like NextGen struggled with delays and cost overruns. I understand you're taking a different approach this time, particularly when it comes to procurement and delivery. Can you walk us through what's changed and what Congress should be considering when it comes to accountability and future funding to support that approach while also ensuring continued access for business aviation and smooth integration for new entrants?
Yeah, I think that's critical. So just a couple quick points. Number one, we're actually using our unique authority for procurement. That's not been used in the past. We are getting CEO engagement with us. I think America cares about the bill. The president cares. I care. CEOs want to be part of. This is the greatest infrastructure project in decades, and it has a lot of attention. So CEOs are partnering with us. I think on the accountability front, you've given us a lot of, put a lot of faith in us. And maybe that faith isn't warranted. I think continual conversations, whether it's testimony or private meetings, letting you honestly know, are we on time and on budget? Are we delayed? Why are we delayed? Are we beating? That kind of cooperation between the DOT, the FAA, and this body is critically important.
I agree, and candor is welcomed
100%.
very, very much. Second to last question, Kansas is home to the air capital of the world, where aviation and aerospace manufacturing generates more than $20.5 billion in total economic activity and rely on the FAA to have a strong presence abroad. Secretary Duffy, how are you protecting the U.S. aviation export market?
Well, I think just free markets, free trade. America's great. This is one industry. I think we net export $78, $80 billion to the benefit of the U.S. Right. And again, with continued innovation, which we're going to have some announcements coming on, not just on the Boeing side, but on the civil aviation side, some great strides are going to be made to make sure we continue to lead the world.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back my 2 seconds.
Perfect.
Very impressive.
Mr. Stanton, you're right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Duffy, for being here today. Earlier this summer, you announced a essential initiative at DOT to modernize our air traffic system. We support that effort. We want to work closely with you. We know it's going to have a very high price tag and will need bipartisan support. This committee is a bipartisan working committee. You know that. You saw it through our work on the bipartisan infrastructure law and the bipartisan FAA reauthorization. We're going to need specifics on the plan. Do you have a better sense at this point how much your plan will cost, and how will you determine priorities, since you will not be able to get everything you want? Hopefully you'll get most of what is needed for the system.
Yes, thank you for that question, and I appreciate the bipartisanship on this effort. It's an American issue, not a partisan issue. And so if we look, teleco is what we have, right? So this is fiber. We have money for radios, voice switches. We have money for radar, surface movement radar at our airports. What I want to do is, with an integrator, this is going to be one company that's going to manage the project. There's been some confusion around that, but the integrator, I think, is important because the FAA is not qualified, doesn't have the expertise to manage this kind of a project. So we need a project manager to come in and manage. And I think we should be able to do radar at the same time as we're doing telecom. And we should be ordering radios and voice switches at the same time. When you give us the money for the Common Automation Platform, we want to start that process as well. I think we can keep all the streams going at the same time. The key is we're going to deploy these assets when we still have airplanes in the sky. And doing that safely is the #1 priority. Yeah. That's what we have to do. And so we got to choreograph, and we have to implement correctly. But to answer your question, I want to do everything.
Yep. We look forward to having you back here regularly to give us updates, particularly on the issue of costs, so we can plan accordingly. I represent Arizona. Extreme heat is a tremendous issue in my state. Last week, we hit a high temperature of 118 degrees. That's right about the maximum operating temperature for passenger planes. Last year, we had 113 consecutive days above 100. This has huge impacts on our airport and the aviation system. Extreme heat can soften and crack taxiways, making it harder for planes to take off. It reduces air density, affecting lift and engine thrust, and it has an impact on people who work at the airport. We have seen overheating of both equipment and personnel. These are essential workers who make air travel possible. How are you investing in heat resiliency of critical FAA facilities and equipment? And how do you plan to ensure that the ATC technology that we've talked about under your modernization plan can operate safely in adverse weather conditions like extreme heat in Arizona?
I will take a look at that, and we can maybe have an additional conversation. I have also talked to your governor about the needs for different facilities within the great state of Arizona.
Thank you.
Only 5 seconds over.
Mr. Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, welcome. First, I want to thank you for your recent visit to Utah, riding the front runner computer rail. Your engagement on the ground sent a clear message to Utah that we're being recognized for our highest levels. I have 1 or 2 questions, and I have a big ask at the very end. As you know, with your visit, Utah's front runner commuter rail system is the backbone of Utah's transit system. Utah Department of Education of Transportation is seeking to double track key segments of the front runner, increase predictability, reliability, and to double the current ridership of the system. Can we continue to count on this administration's support for funding through the Capital Investment Grant Program?
Yeah, so I actually got to ride the rail when I was there, and it's obviously very well used. And I would, let me do some additional looking. I've had a lot of conversations about it. Let me see where we're at in the process and welcome the opportunity to continue to work with you.
Okay, this might be another rail question. As you know, many states approve their own exclusions for highway projects. Is there anything preventing the transportation agencies from doing the same for rail and transit projects? Are you familiar with that?
We've been pushing that on highways, delegation authority. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
I would maybe I haven't thought about that. Maybe rail has, but happy to consider that. And again, I think states do things oftentimes better and faster than the DOT. They don't have all the restrictions that we put around them and the money.
As you continue, this is my big ask. I'm going to do a little bragging on Utah because I think we could do some things in this arena. We are rated both number one state to live in, the number one state to live in, the best run state in the U.S. In 2025, we collaborate between state, local, and federal like no other state. We finish our projects on time. We do it under budget based on our Constitution. We have an inland port and one of the newest airports, which will make us the hub of the West. We love keeping our kids close. They're hard workers, and they are very language diverse because of the mission culture of our state. My big ask is as you look at innovation for infrastructure model, please look to Utah. What we can do here and the way we can get it done, the rest of the country can benefit in a big, big way. Test us, and we'll prove ourselves in a big way in that regard.
I had a great meeting with your state DOT. Smart, good. You guys do infrastructure very, very well in Utah. I mentioned Texas is the leader on this delegation authority. I mentioned that to Utah, and they wanted to explore the same opportunities as well. So kudos to your state.
Thank you so much, and now you're back.
Ms. Davids, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Duffy, for taking some time to be here with us today. As you're aware, we've kept pace with the challenges of competing in a global aerospace market, and I'll associate myself with the comments of my colleague from Kansas, Tracy Mann. This is an area where I am so excited to see the FAA meet the challenge of modernization, or an area where I'm excited about FAA meeting the challenge of modernization is in the promotion and coordination of new and emerging technologies in aviation, like advanced air mobility. I was encouraged by your agreement last month with other aviation authorities from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the UK to develop a roadmap for advanced air mobility aircraft type certification. I was further encouraged by your desire to expand this agreement to other countries so that we can ensure that internationally we're all on the same page. The Advanced Air Mobility Coordination and Leadership Act was passed into law to support the integration of new AAM entrants by directing an interagency working group at the DOT to plan and coordinate domestic government efforts. The law, so everyone else knows, the law required this working group to release a report detailing findings from the review and examination that was performed and providing the AAM national strategy, including a plan and associated recommendations. And my understanding is that much of this intergovernmental work has already been completed and could serve as that foundation for an interagency collaboration and that progress that we need to preserve U.S. leadership and innovation. And I'm curious if you could tell the committee here when will the framework be released? When can we anticipate that from the group? And just looking forward to working together to provide some of that certainty that's going to be necessary.
I appreciate your focus on this issue. Your excitement on the issue is shared by the FAA. We are really excited about this new technology. By the way, I think it's going to change the way people move. It's going to be fascinating. Again, making sure that it's American technology that's deployed around the world as opposed to some countries that are more challenging for us, their technology. And so we're moving as quickly as we can. I kind of call it Goldilocks, right? We can't go too fast. Can't have people get hurt. You can't move too slow or we lose, so we have to get it just right. like the porch or the bed with Goldilocks, and that's what we're trying to do, but we are moving as quickly as possible, and we have great American innovators in this space, and it's exciting what's going to come.
Thank you. And
The ATC is so important around this as well. So we're going to have more commercial aircraft. We have a lot of general aviation. We're going to have these eVTOLs. We're going to have drones in the space. So we need a new system that can accommodate all the new traffic that we're going to have.
yeah, and you touched on the thing I would have brought up if we all had more time today. I appreciate that, and I'll look forward to working with your team on this. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Mr. Collins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary. I saw Burchett went over, and the further south you go, the slower we talk. So I'm going to make it fast. Listen, met a young man a while back. He had applied for ATC 3 years ago. Never heard anything. Happy to report that he is starting work. He's probably already started. It's good to know, and I appreciate you hiring people based on their qualifications, not DEI initiatives that have been forced on us for the past administration. As a matter of fact, this guy's so overqualified. His dad is an ATC, and he's retiring soon. Also, certification of new aircraft in the U.S. is terrible. You can get it done quicker in Europe. I encourage you, please, get the private sector involved in that to help speed up the certification process. But that's not what I want to ask you about. As when I see the president, I always tell him I am your favorite trucker in Congress, and I need to get in my wheelhouse. In order to, and we can, increase productivity and efficiency in the trucking industry. Number one, I want to just tell you about truck parking. We didn't have that problem a decade ago. The problem is all these nuclear verdicts, these out-of-control lawyers out there that are suing the crap out of everybody, and shippers and consignees will not allow you to stay on their yards. If we could do that when we're loading or unloading, you could take your break right then and you'd have your full set of hours instead of the way we do it now. The other thing is the sleeper berth, the hours of service. Since 05, man, we've been bouncing around everywhere trying to do these hours of service. Comes to find out, I think the best thing, and this is what I want you to comment on, is what we had prior to 05, where you could do 8-2, 7-3, 6-4, 5-5 in that sleeper. It is the most productive and efficient. We've got electronic logging now. You can't cheat on it. And I would love to see if you've got any suggestions or your thoughts, or if you've been thinking about it.
We're going to move forward with the pilot program, offering more flexibility. And again, we got to make sure we're doing things safely. By the way, if you mess with truckers, they have a really great Twitter presence. They'll come after you like you can't believe. They haven't done that with me because, again, we're trying to make things better and safer for them. We had to work on the theft, the double brokering, there's the parking. There's a lot of issues that are very relevant to the industry. And again, they make this country work.
There are, and I would say that we want to be safe too, because our jobs are not inside some building. They're out there on the highways with your family and my family. Nobody wants to be unsafe. I will leave on a quick good note though. I got my CDLs renewed 3 weeks ago, and the new system where my medical card and everything is automatically uploaded on the computer, it worked fine for me. So it seems like maybe the bugs are getting worked out. With that, Mr. Chairman, yes, sir.
I had my CDL for 30 years, and when I moved to New Jersey, I didn't have a medical card. They made me give it up, and I'd already sat there for 3 hours. So they said, you can come back, and I said, no, thank you, I'll give it up. So I've had mine for a long time. But
appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good work. With that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Garcia, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, Ranking Member, and Secretary Duffy for being here today. 3 minutes is hardly enough time to discuss some of the chaos that's occurred since you took the helm of the department, from funding pauses that create confusion to mass firings at DOT that weaken the ability to get funding out the door. Your actions contradict your stated goal of promoting community safety across the country. For example, it's evident in your directive to the DOT to hold off on money to support local immigration cooperation. In what world does stopping the construction of a grade construction so kids don't have to crawl under idling trains make communities safer? DOT funding has nothing to do with immigration enforcement, yet you attempt to use it as leverage to advance this administration's cruel agenda. It's blatantly illegal, which is why a judge put a stop to it last month. And that brings me to another issue before the courts, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, or DBE. Thanks again to the ranking member for allowing me to introduce into the record letters supporting the program from DBEs across the country. And I was gathering input in my district for surface transportation priorities. The message from groups was clear. The DBE program has helped level the playing field in a historically exclusionary sector, and its elimination would reimpose barriers for small businesses owned by minorities and women. And you want to make it even harder for them, Mr. Secretary? Your proposed budget zeroes out funding for the Small Business Transportation Resource Centers. These centers provide technical assistance and individual businesses advising at no cost to all small businesses in the transportation industry. In the Great Lakes region, the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce has provided over 700 small business owners from all backgrounds with help to bid on government contracts. Mr. Chair, I'd like to submit this letter from the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for the record describing the vital role of small business transportation resource centers. Mr. Secretary, this is what I do want to ask you. Why does your proposed 2026 budget aim to cancel programs that support small businesses?
No, there's nothing to cancel small businesses, but we got away with race preferences a long time ago. So I don't think we should.
I'm asking you about small businesses, Mr. Secretary.
Small businesses, no, but if you want preferences for race and sex, I think
I'm asking you about small businesses. That's the question.
And really quickly, I think you should follow the law. And if you have your states that care more
question
about
is about small businesses, Secretary. Would you answer the question as it relates to your 2026
you shouldn't
budget?
harbor or impede ICE.
You're not going to
And if
answer
you
the
do,
question?
The gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ezell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. Appreciate you very much. Just recently, just as of yesterday, we passed the Coast Guard Reauthorization Act of 2025. That's going to be a great win.
Great
For
win.
the Coast Guard, it's going to be a great win for the American shipbuilder, the maritime industry, and it's just going to do so many good things for the country, and I'm very proud to be a part of that. As you well know, the Department of Transportation is so critical in sustaining a strong American maritime industry, and a core component of that is supporting the Jones Act. You were very supportive of the Jones Act during your confirmation hearing, which I appreciated. It supports 650,000 jobs, $154 billion in economic output. And, would you agree, that would your support how crucial this is in advancing the President's shipbuilding and maritime agenda?
It's critical. And by the way, wouldn't it be great if we didn't need the Jones Act? 'Cause we're building so many ships and we're so competitive and we have so many mariners. That'd be great, but this is important to preserving American shipping as we go through this process of revitalizing through the ships building EO, and I'll have some proposals for all of you on how we can fund it and get back in the game of controlling and owning our seas.
Outstanding. Mr. Chairman, I want to submit a government accountability report for the record. Commercial Shipbuilding Maritime Administration needs to improve financial assistance program for the record, please.
Without objection.
The chairman was distracted.
Okay.
Mr. Ezell.
I want to submit this for the record, please. Maritime.
Without objection.
I get another 30 seconds, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, this report is very concerning, specifically the section regarding the federal ship financing program. Only 2 loans have been guaranteed within the past 5 years under the Biden administration. Not to mention nearly 75% of all shipbuilders that participated in the program said it's not even a viable means of financing projects. Mr. Secretary, what is your team doing to examine the ineffective Biden financing programs such as the federal ship financing program?
So this has been a focus of the department and again, a focus of the president. Again, through that coordination, through that planning of how we're going to need the help from Congress, we have put a significant effort And again, we're not trying to slow walk shipbuilding in America, maybe like the last administration. We think it has to be supercharged. And it's going to be our partnership that's going to make that happen. And so we are moving as quickly as possible to get as much money out the door that we have to our avail.
Thank you. One more thing I'd just like to throw for my extra 15 seconds, Mr. Chairman, is that anybody in this room that cuts grass, has their own lawnmower, cuts their own grass, we have to buy these gas cans now that you absolutely can't fill up or pour gas out of. Do you have any control over the gas cans in this country that we could go back to a normal gas can to fill up a lawnmower?
Here. Yeah, we would do washers and dryers and dishwashers too that don't work, but yeah.
Lawnmower
Mr.
gas.
Fill my boat with it,
guys.
they don't work, you're right.
Mr. Pappas, you're right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Secretary, welcome back to the committee room. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
I want to call your attention to a letter that I wrote to you last month, which was signed by many of my colleagues here today on this committee regarding staffing at Federal Highway Division offices. As you're aware, the FHA has seen a 26% reduction in force since May. My concerns with the division offices in ensuring that they have enough staff to fulfill their critical mission to our state DOTs, providing frontline assistance in transportation project development and delivery. Reports have indicated that division offices in North Carolina and Texas have experienced a reduction in staff of 50% and 60% respectively. And so based on current data on the Federal Highway website, over half the division offices were understaffed prior to the staffing cuts taking effect. So the support these offices provide to their states is critical, and in turn, the department must ensure that these division offices have staffing resources and support to accomplish their job. I'm wondering if you can talk more about the reduction in force, how that's impacting division offices, and whether the department has a plan to ensure that each office has necessary staffing to support state DOTs.
So thank you for the question. And just to be clear, when we did our reduction in force, we preserved all of the critical safety positions. But we are trying to do more, we're trying to do more with less. And if we're ineffective and we need more people on board to make sure we accomplish the mission, I'll bring them in. And it's my desire, and I know yours, and the president's desire to make sure we're building, getting money out the door and doing these great projects. That was his directive to me. And so if I see issues where we can't get our job done, I'll bring more people in. But I think we can do more with less. And if we can't, we'll accommodate.
Well, we're going to be watching it closely, and I think we need more than just hopes. We need concrete plans. But I want to move on to another issue. In January of this year, New Hampshire was set to receive $17 million in NEVI funding for EV charging infrastructure. It was going to build out a statewide network in New Hampshire, which is really critical to our tourism economy in particular. A recent study came out saying that if we lose these dollars and don't build out the charging network, we could risk $1.4 billion in economic activity in our state around tourism in total. So I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about the suspension of NEVI funds and new guidance that we are awaiting. It was supposed to be released weeks ago. And where does that stand? Where can we expect this to go? Our state's counting on these dollars.
Yeah, thank you for that question too. So again, if you're going to spend money on chargers, I might disagree with how you spent that money, which I do, but it's my job to spend per the will of the Congress. But the last administration had so many rules in place. Your states had a hard time deploying the capital to build the charging stations, which is why you only had like 78 chargers built in the country. And so I wanted to redo the guidance, which I have. I've sent it to OMB, waiting to get that back from them, and then I'll send it over to all of you. But if you're going to spend money on chargers, let's build chargers in America. Let's not just spend money and not get the result of a charger, which is you don't want to spend the money, you want the chargers in your state. So I think the new guidance is going to give, again, far more flexibility to your states. And I've done my part waiting to get it back from OMB, and I think you'll be happier.
I agree. We're ready to put shovels in the ground to New Hampshire. So I yield back.
Mr. Fong, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary, for your leadership. Congratulations on your new role also as interim NASA administrator. Certainly welcome you to come out to California to visit the Mojave Spaceport, as well as NASA Armstrong, if you have any free time. Certainly, I represent the district that is most negatively impacted by California High-Speed Rail's nightmare. It starts at a field out north of Bakersfield and ends in a field south of Merced, and it's wasting billions of dollars. So I want to thank you for your work to roll back the funding for this failed project so that we can focus on more viable projects Want to encourage you, if you can, to take the opportunity to redirect those federal funds to truly needed transportation projects in California, such as expanding the State Route 99 or Interstate 5, critical supply chain corridors in California. Moving to aviation, safety clearly is your highest priority and our highest priority. I want to thank you for your efforts to modernize and bring additional safety measures to our aviation industry. A major component of that is our air system is the rigorous training and qualification standards for airline pilots. Since the implementation of the 1,500-hour rule for pilot certification and qualifications in 2013, fatal airline crashes have declined by 99.8%. These standards help set our safety standards. I wanted to get your take and see if you could comment on the pilot training and qualification standards, whether they should be maintained, as I think they should, or should they change in any fashion?
First, I want to thank you for your support on what we've done at California High-Speed Rail. Appreciate your partnership and someone from the state who can delineate how it's been so wasteful and not delivered for the taxpayers in the country, but also in California. In regard to 1,500-hour rule, I have no plan to change it. But what I would do is say if there's data that would say if there's some level 4 simulators that can give pilots experiences that they can't get in their Cessna, to have them truly ready for what might be thrown at them while they're in the air, would I consider that and have a conversation with all of you? Of course I would, because all of us want to make sure we have well-trained pilots in the cockpit, especially on the planes that you and your family fly on. So no plans to change, but I would always be open to new data that might drive more innovation to have better pilots in the cockpit.
Thank you. And my last question, I appreciate your commitment, and appreciate the President's commitment and to assure that our nation is on the cutting edge of technology, adopting technology like autonomous driving technologies, allowing them to mature. I wanted to see if you could outline your vision of how these technologies can aid our transportation system through enhancing efficiency, safety, and prosperity.
We're talking about technology on our roadways, or
specifically to autonomous driving technology, autonomous AV technology.
Yeah. So listen, I think it's important that we continue to allow. We got to get data from the companies, right? And data will allow us to make better rules. This is the Goldilocks philosophy. We can't go too fast. We can't go too slow. But we want this innovation to happen in America. And we have great innovators. We should have one federal standard. I think this patchwork of state by state is not going to work long term. So we're working with all of the manufacturers to develop a standard that's going to work and keep everybody safe. By the way, I think the 40,000 deaths we have a year, I think this is the real space that can drive down those deaths. The human eye, along with this technology, is going to save lives.
Thank you. I have legislation on that, and I look forward to working with you. I yield back.
Mr. Moulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, welcome back. Good to see you.
You as well.
Quick quote: "These bullet trains, they're unbelievably fast, unbelievably comfortable. We don't have anything like that, anything close. It doesn't make any sense that we don't." Who's that from?
I missed the first part of it. Is that me?
President Trump.
President Trump.
Right. And so I appreciate
so aligned with him. That could have been mine or his. I don't know.
Could have been you. I appreciate your point that we need to make high-speed rail work, but you're not just opposed to high-speed rail. Can you name a couple other first world countries that don't have or aren't building high-speed rail?
It would be hard for me to name some.
Literally, I thought of New Zealand. Morocco has it. Egypt is building it. I mean, it's crazy, right? So we got to make it work. Now, you believe in the free market, right?
100%.
So shouldn't there be a level playing field between different modes? So like high-speed rail competes with airlines, competes with highways. Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, I have no objection to that.
Because right now we just subsidize airports and highways. I mean, we're drastically raising billions and billions of dollars of additional subsidies for...
We do subsidize rail as well.
We do, but not nearly to the tune of airports and highways. And so my guess is that there's not some vast high-speed rail conspiracy that's infected every other country in the world and just hasn't come to America yet. So we got to figure out how to make this work.
I would agree. And I think what we have to, a lot of
it could be RFK Jr.'s vaccine strategy that's kept us high-speed rail free.
I think I would welcome that conversation, because I think there's a lot of rules and permits that are required that
drive up
the
the cost.
difficult in America versus elsewhere. But I'm open to, you give good money for us to invest in high-speed rail. I want to see a project that we can do it. I've been tentatively supportive of Brightline West, LA to Las Vegas. Want to see how they do. There was conversations about Dallas to Houston. We took out Amtrak, but maybe other providers will come in there. It'd be great if we could have it on the Northeast Corridor, but it's too windy, and if we could figure out a way to do that, that would be great. But let's figure
Great.
it
Well,
out.
let's work on it together. I very much appreciate
But let's
that.
not spend money to not have a deliverable. Let's
Exactly.
get a deliverable.
No, I agree with you. Another quick quote. One entered the city like a god, one scuttles in now like a rat. Know where that comes from?
I don't know.
It's talking about Penn Station. I understand that you are on board with Americans having a station in New York that they can actually be proud of, like London
Yes.
St. Pancras or something.
100%.
Another possibility is to do through running so trains don't come in from Long Island and turn around and back. All right, let's work on that because it will dramatically boost efficiency.
Otherwise, why are we doing it, right? We might have a facade and a...
Well, you got to get New Jersey people and New Long Island people to talk to each other. You might be better at that than I am.
I don't know why you... But
Look, there's an opportunity for that.
We're working on that.
Great, thank you. And there's an opportunity for that in Boston as well, because you have North Station and South Station. They're a mile apart. They were supposed to be connected. The project was delayed originally by World War I. So we'd like to see Boston Crossrail going. It would connect the Northeast Corridor from Virginia to Maine.
I haven't looked at that, but I will.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I appreciate it. I look forward to working with you.
Let's work together on these issues.
We will. Great, thanks. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Weed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Duffy from the great state of Wisconsin.
Some would say the greatest state.
Exactly. Hey, for taking the time to appear here before this committee, I want to commend you on the department's work over the last several months to return the DOT to its core mission while prioritizing safety at the same time. I would also like to commend you and your staff's commitment to working through the existing backlog of discretionary grant programs. Since taking office, several groups from my constituency have approached my office looking for assistance relating to the grants that they were awarded, and I'm thankful that your department has been responsive and you provide regular updates on the review process, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Secretary Duffy, as a former lumberjack and representative of Wisconsin's North Woods, like me, you have firsthand knowledge of the unique transportation challenges facing our timber industry. As you know, loaded logging trucks at the state legal weights are currently prohibited from traveling on interstate highways, forcing them to travel through small towns on two-way roads, passing schools, driveways, stoplights. The Safe Routes bill, which I am sponsoring, would fix this, allowing these overweight logging trucks to access the interstate system for short-haul trips from their source to processing facilities. Given your own background and experience with this topic, could you elaborate on the need for this legislation, and is there any way DOT could help us implement a fix for this?
So I'm going to shamefully say that I was focused on that like you were when I was in Congress, and I should bring that attention back to the issue now at DOT and would welcome the chance to look at your bill and work together. But again, it's a huge issue for our loggers.
Great, thank you.
And by the safety of our communities as well. You're right. These big logging trucks are going through these small town stoplights, sidewalks right there, and I think it's a problem that has to be addressed.
Great, and I think if Wisconsin thinks it's okay, I think we should be okay with it at the federal government level too. So
you're probably right.
All right. Last question. The Biden administration, of course, advanced an energy agenda that picked winners and losers and promoted technology that's not ready for prime time, and it disregarded consumer choice and really was a cost to taxpayers. Under the Biden administration, DOT prioritized investments in constructing these electric vehicle charging stations, though we know that those efforts were largely unsuccessful and produced a limited number of stations. The president's budget request called for the cancellation and rescission of these funds, something that my bill, H.R. 1513, also aims to achieve. Mr. Secretary, can you explain why this funding was largely unsuccessful and why there does not need to be a standalone program for electric vehicle infrastructure?
There were so many rules around how the money could be spent, and it polluted with ideas of the DEI and all the green work, which made it really challenging for states to build, which is why I only have 78 chargers in place. And so my commitment is I'm going to do what you say. I respect the body. I served in the body. I'm trying to redo the guidelines. So if you want to build, you can. But I am also supportive of being a good steward of the tax money, and I support the president's proposal to pull the cash.
Great, thank you, Mr. Secretary.
But until then, I'm going to execute per your will.
Excellent, thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Chairman. Secretary Duffy, it's good to have you here today, and I look forward to working with you. So a few things. I was glad to hear that you are in support of high-speed rail, and I think many of us share the idea that we have to invest wisely and make sure that we have a product that's going to deliver. So yes. The Cascadia Corridor in Washington State that hits Portland, Oregon, and Vancouver, BC. I look forward to working with you and your administration to get funding for that project. But I want to just really put a fine point on what my colleague asked about. So we know that after the tragic crash of Colgan Air Flight 3407, that there was a FAA rule for pilot training time for 1,500 hours. So to put a fine point on my question, will you commit to holding the FAA administrator accountable for enforcing this specific rule of 1,500 hours of training?
Well, per my other answer, the answer is yes, and I think he was clear and consistent with my answer. If technology changes and there's ways that we can give some credit for simulator time, would I be open to that? Yes. Do I have a plan to do that? No. But you and I share the mission of we want pilots to be really well trained.
Yes.
And how do we do that? And 1,500 hour rule has been very effective. If technology comes into play that we could get data that shows they could be even better trained with some simulator time, I'm open to that.
Okay,
I think you would be too, but we care about the same thing.
But we do have 1,500 hours of training as the baseline.
100%. But
thank you.
What do you get credit for? Could you get some more simulator training credit? Possibly, no plan, but I think that's a reasonable conversation as the technology and the simulators develop.
All right, now I'm going to switch over to NASA, which you now oversee as acting administrator. So more than 80% of NASA's facilities are past their life, many dating back to the 1960s, if you can believe it. Aging infrastructure makes it harder to monitor the atmosphere, from tracking storms to managing air traffic. So can you speak specifically about your plan to address this aging infrastructure with projects by NASA, NOAA, and even the FAA, and how you think updating these systems can actually help the FAA maximize air travel efficiencies and safety?
I think that would be premature for me. In practice, today will be my first full day at NASA, and I want to spend time with the staff and the team. But once I do that, I'm happy to have an additional conversation with you about that. And I didn't want to talk about that role. I wanted to talk about the DOT role. But in my other capacity, I'm happy to have a conversation and pick your brain on what you think we should do.
All right, thank you. I yield back.
Thank
you. Mr. Shreve, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Duffy, thank you for being with us. I represent Central and Eastern Indiana. And I was very happy to see Brian Bedford confirmed as our next FAA administrator. He did a standout job at Republic Airways, which is based in my hometown of Indianapolis, and he'll bring a lot of talent to an organization that will much benefit from that. So appreciate that. I spent some time in April at Indy Center. Opportunity to see the back end of our air traffic control system as we move a lot of freight and passengers through the skies, and was made keenly aware of the human capital constraints that we've got. Your focus is on rebuilding that hard infrastructure, but I know you're giving a whole lot of thought to that human infrastructure as we build out this economy. In the One Big Beautiful Bill, there were provisions to enable 529 money to be used for skilled trades education for people that would go into flight training programs or into over-the-road trucking programs, diesel mechanics, not just traditional four-year education. And I wanted to know if your department is working to leverage that toolbox now as you focus on the human infrastructure component of your work over the next few years.
We are going to work through that toolbox. But you bring up a really important point. This is a broader American conversation. It's almost the Mike Rowe philosophy of there's a lot of great jobs out there that we haven't talked to kids about. We tell them the only way you can move forward is with a college degree. These air traffic controllers, 4 months of the academy, 3-4 years in, they're making $160,000 a year. These are really good paying jobs. and mechanics as well. So again, we have to use the resources that you give to make sure we have the appropriate staffing to take care of our aircraft and our skies.
A great program, and yet, while air traffic controllers can be brought in, it takes them several years to be. Yeah. Would you share with us how long it takes from that point when we recruit someone into the profession before they're able to do their job on their own?
Well, someone else made the point. It was taking 3 years once you take the entrance exam before you get a spot in the academy, which is most kids are going to go get a different job. Yeah. So what we've done now is we're taking the best qualified, those who score 90% on the test, and we are getting them into the academy far more quickly. By the way, this is way more complicated than you would have thought to try to navigate that. But if we get you in within 60 days, once you graduate, it depends what airspace you go to. You can be certified in an easier airspace in a year. If you're going to N90 in New York, you're going to be 3 years before you're certified. So it depends on what space you're going to. But again, we have to start this process. We got to get more kids, young people into the academy and starting the certification process. Otherwise, we're never going to resolve this problem.
Thanks for the response.
Gentleman's time has expired. Just so everybody knows, votes have been called, but we're going to try to get in 2 more. Mr. Ryan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for sneaking me in. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. I have 3 items, 3 minutes. I'm going to jump right in. First, as some of my colleagues have asked, and I appreciate your constructive response, I've got 2 high-priority bipartisan infrastructure projects and grants in my district, actually my hometown of Kingston, New York. The single biggest grant my city has ever secured, $21.7 million in a raised grant to address flooding in our downtown area. Would you commit to working with me on seeing what we can do to move that forward?
100%. And if we haven't told you where it's at in the process, we'll do that.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I appreciate it. Secondly, I'm a proud combat veteran. I know we got a lot of veterans on the committee. I wanted to ask about something related to that. In late 2024, just as the administrations were switching, the FAA put in place a long-needed rule to protect and support disabled Americans in wheelchairs and other assisted devices, and specifically veterans, who for decades have had a nightmare experience, disabled Americans in wheelchairs flying in our aviation system in the country. And I want to credit the Biden administration and Secretary Buttigieg. They worked really, really hard with a lot of groups in a bipartisan way to get this through. And I do believe it, we got to say I think they were the most pro-passenger administration, at least in my lifetime. Almost immediately, though, your DOT has not once but twice stopped enforcement of that rule. And it's really concerning. The paralyzed veterans of America who worked really, really hard to advance this had now, and celebrated, have had to get involved again. They've now intervened in a lawsuit, which is all our big airlines trying to roll back the rule, and paralyzed veterans have been engaged. And even the National Council on Disability, which is an independent, bipartisan federal agency that advises Congress and the President, has sent you a letter just last month urging you, at least while this plays out, to enforce the rule. So why are we not enforcing this on behalf of our disabled veterans, Mr. Secretary?
I can give you a fuller answer later, but again, this is
just in the interest of time, would you please look at it, Mr. Secretary?
I will. By the way, I have a daughter with Down syndrome who is disabled. I understand and fully support our disabled community, and I support our veterans. But I'll take a look at it, and we can talk later on this issue.
I appreciate it. I only have a few seconds. A little bit off topic, but clearly, given your new promotion, additional portfolio at NASA, you're a trusted member of the President's cabinet. You have his trust. Will you commit and this has been asked of me by a lot of my constituents, will you commit at the next cabinet meeting to a fulsome conversation in front of the American people on the release of the Epstein files?
Listen,
yes or no, please, Mr.
Well,
Secretary.
I guess I don't know. I don't know all the data on it. I would
just do a
I'm
conversation.
not trying to dodge you. If I was at FBI or DOJ and I knew more, I know some of the background and why some has not been released. But I got to leave that to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel.
You wouldn't just open up to a conversation, Mr. Secretary?
Well, I guess
and say that the American people who've been promised this deserve transparency.
I don't have. Listen, I agree with transparency, but I think it's also important to know if there's child videos in there Do I want that released? Full transparency, no, I don't. I want to protect those kids. Or if there is, if you flew with Epstein to Epstein Island and then...
I certainly did not.
And then you flew on to get on a boat to sail in the Bahamas, should I make by accusation the fact that you were just on the plane? I think we have to be smart about how we do it, what's going to be released. But I do believe in transparency.
I just have to tell you the number of calls I've gotten and my colleagues in a bipartisan way calling for transparency from an administration that promised this. I just urge you to consider it, Mr. Secretary.
I agree with transparency, and I do.
Gentleman's time
and I
has
believe
expired.
in Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino. Again, I think the right has probably been more vocal than the left on this issue, maybe equally.
It's my constituents. It's not any left or right.
I know, I hear you. I know.
Gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Taylor, you're recognized.
It's out of my space.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Secretary, for being here today and for sharing with us. And thank you for your volume and quality of work you've done to this point. I know you've been handed a lot. You've done a wonderful job. I'm thrilled to see under the Trump administration and also under your leadership a return to big, beautiful infrastructure projects that support economic growth and rural connectivity. The Ohio Department of Transportation has recently begun planning for a future interstate designation called I-73 in southern Ohio that would go directly through the Appalachian district that I represent. An interstate through southern Ohio would not just help connect rural communities to the modern economy, but would enhance our national security because of multiple key facilities and defense-related companies along the route. While this process is in the early stages of development, I want to ensure that the Ohio Department of Transportation has all the tools and resources it needs. How can the Department of Transportation assist states such as Ohio in planning and constructing major infrastructure projects like this future interstate to spur the continued growth of our nation, especially in historically underserved areas like mine?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it's our request for information and data and your state's willingness to give that data to make sure we can see the priority of serving your community. And I would agree with you. We have too many communities that don't have adequate infrastructure, and most of them are oftentimes rural. So I would be happy to have an additional conversation on that project with you, and we can talk more.
I appreciate that, and I appreciated your testimony earlier to Congressman Boss that special attention ought to be paid to rural America. I sort of consider it the reasonable attention that should have always been paid, but I'm glad to hear that that's becoming more of a priority. In April, President Trump signed an executive order entitled Enforcing Common Sense Rules of the Road for America's Truck Drivers, requiring all CDL holders to be proficient in English. It should be common sense, but President Trump is correct. I was proud to introduce Connor's Law shortly after to codify that executive order into law. And just recently, the Department of Transportation announced guidelines to ensure that all CDL holders comply with President Trump's executive order. What steps did your department take to comply with this executive order to this point?
Well, we put out a rule requiring English proficiency, and the consequence is your vehicle will be put out of service. And that has been a great impetus for drivers to learn the language or don't get behind the wheel. And now, again, we have to rely on our state partners to help us enforce that rule. Many of them have. And again, I think this drives safety. I mean, if you can't read road signs, or if you're stopped by law enforcement, or if you're in a crash, you have to be able to communicate what you have on your rig or what happened. So this is not an anti other language than English. This is about safety on the road.
Thank you. I appreciate your swift action. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you.
Ms. Sykes, and this will be our last one before we recess for vote.
Thank you very much, and we couldn't have a double back-to-back Ohio. It just wouldn't be right if we didn't do it that way. So thank you so much for saying. I'll get right to it and talk about rail safety, Mr. Secretary. You visited East Palestine earlier this year during the second anniversary, and you put out a statement and you said, quote, in partnership with the Trump-Vance administration and Congress, U.S. DOT will work to advance rail safety. As President Trump has pledged, we will ensure the people of East Palestine are not forgotten, and we will use every resource to prevent other communities from enduring what they experience. I just heard my colleague from Southeast Ohio say you were planning to pay more attention to rural communities. I do not represent East Palestine, but they do feel forgotten because there has not been any rail safety. I recognize that you appreciate the separation of powers. Thank you for that, as you shared with my colleague from Nevada. But resources aren't just money, sometimes it's influence. And so I'm asking, based on the statement that you made in February, what resources, including your influence, have you invoked to Congress, with Congress, in order to ensure that people are not forgotten, because the people in East Palestine are asking for rail safety legislation?
Yeah, and I've worked well with the Vice President, former Senator from Ohio, who has thought about this extensively. Obviously, it was one of his communities. And I think what we're trying to think through is the equities of labor and the equities of safety around new technology. And how do we cut that balance? But I do think there are new technologies that could have identified what was going wrong on the East Palestine train.
Well, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, because I only have a minute and 20 seconds. We have an NTSB report that shows exactly what happened, and some suggestions from a director who is still on with the Trump administration, and it is fantastic. So I think we can listen to what she has said, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. But have you spoken with Chairman Graves about any legislation using your resource of influence to make sure that people of East Palestine are not forgotten?
No, not forgotten. Again, not from us. By the way, I did a show on Fox Business. I was the first TV show to start to cover East Palestine. No one was covering it. And I was one of the first ones to try to bring this to the national light.
Mr. Secretary,
because I do care about
no?
it. And again, what my point to you is we do have equities
Mr. Secretary,
and
is that a
rulemaking
yes or no?
authority.
Have you spoken with Chairman Graves about
About
moving
East
forward?
Palestine, I have not.
Okay, thank you so much. That is very indicative and understands why we haven't seen anything in East Palestine. I'm going to move to air traffic. I represent Northeast Ohio, Ohio's 13th congressional district, the best district in the country. And since we're doing invitations, I'm inviting you to come out and see our airport, which has one of the oldest air traffic control towers in operation. 2 months ago, when your undersecretary was here, I asked him for a list of those towers and why Akron-Canton wasn't on it, and we have yet to get a response. We have also reached out to you directly to meet with you, so I'm hoping that maybe you can come to the district. We can talk about this air traffic control tower. You can see this fabulous airport that exists, and we can make sure that people are safe in Northeast Ohio. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
For both of them, yes. And then I would just say that if you ask people in East Palestine, does Secretary Duffy support them, or did Secretary Buttigieg support them? I think that answer will be clear. He never went, or went weeks late. So just to duly note.
Gentleladies, time has expired. The chair has been notified of votes on the House floor. Therefore, the committee shall stand in recess, subject to call of the chair.
I can't hear.
Thank you.